So we will begin by singing the prayers to the departed Vaishnavas, and there is a sheet going around, one sheet for the men, one sheet for the women. If you'd like to speak, this is for everyone, not just Srila Prabhupada disciples. Anyone of any age can speak. And so, and then a lot of times devotees don't sign up and they get inspired during the celebration, so then you just have to let me know that you want to speak. Hare Krishna. Jai Hare Prema Dhamma Karuna Pracho ফলে কোথা দিয়ে না খোরা না থারা কোথা গেলা ফলে কোথা গেলা বরনা তারা ফসনে পুথিব মাথা আনলে ফসিব ফসনে পুথিব মাথা আনলে ফসিব Saba sangira sange je koilo bhira Shishava sangira sange je koilo bhira Sheshamana vaya khande narokamada Sheshangana Bhaya Khande Narothamada Je Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada ki he who brought the treasure of divine love, and who was filled with compassion and mercy. Where has such a personality as Srinivas Acharya gone? Where are my Sarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Where did Lord Chaitanya, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees, in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. From the concluding words of Chaitanya Charitamrita. I think that His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, is always seeing my activities and guiding me within my heart by His words. As it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, Kene Brahma Hridayat Ari Kavaya. Spiritual inspiration comes from within the heart, wherein the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in His Paramatma feature, is always sitting with all His devotees and associates. It is to be admitted that whatever translation work I have done through the inspiration of my spiritual master is done through the inspiration of my spiritual master, because personally I am most insignificant and incompetent to do this materially impossible work. I do not think myself a very learned scholar, but I have full faith in the service of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. If there is any credit to my activities of translating, it is all due to His Divine Grace. Certainly, if His Divine Grace were physically present at this time, it would have been a great occasion for jubilation. But even though He is not physically present, I am confident that He is very much pleased with this work of translation. He was very fond of seeing many books published to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. Therefore, our society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, has been formed to execute the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Although according to material vision, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada passed away from this material world on the last day of December 1936. I still consider His Divine Grace to be always present with me by His Vani, His words. I think that His Divine Grace is always seeing my activities and guiding me within the heart by His words. Spiritual inspiration comes from within the heart, wherein the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His Paramatma feature is always sitting with all His devotees and associates. Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Even though any day is a good day to remember Srila Prabhupada, I also know many of us were in temples when Prabhupada left his body in a very devastated state, and some might have been in India too when Prabhupada left. So I like to just go back a little bit and put myself in that mood and remember what it felt like. So I was just going to read something from Giriraj Swami, remembering he was there in the room when Srila Prabhupada passed away. He said, by afternoon, Prabhupada had fallen into an internal state of consciousness, and devotees placed tulsi leaves and Yamuna water by his head. The room resounded with kirtan, and the doors were open to everyone. The room was packed. Young, old, men, women, all were allowed to be in with Prabhupada and express their love. Several times Pishma asked Prabhupada, have you eaten anything? But he did not respond, and she poured a few drops of Ganges water in his mouth. The Kaviraj said that Prabhupada had only 2 or 3 hours left. Pujaris brought tulsi flower garlands from Krishna Balaram and placed them on the pillow around Prabhupada's head. The devotees continued chanting and praying. There was nothing else we could do. When a final attack came at 3 p.m., Prabhupada rubbed his head quickly back and forth across his heart. Upendra massaged his heart, and Tamal Krishna sat holding his feet, and for the next 4 hours, Prabhupada was peaceful. I was at the head of the bed, wishing I could have one last chance to serve Prabhupada in his bodily form. Suddenly, he threw back his arm, and I was able to touch his hand and squeeze it gently. He had fulfilled my desire. I was grateful, satisfied, even amidst the overwhelming sorrow. As Prabhupada's departure drew closer, the kirtan led by Bharadraj became more and more intense, sung, as Shakti Mata later recalled, in a kind of unusual chorus of 2 parts, in a way that we never sang before. Some devotees were singing Jaya Prabhupada, while others were chanting the Maha Mantra, and somehow the 2 blended together in the most perfectly beautiful way. We don't sound like this, I thought. This isn't coming from us. It was like the room had no ceiling, like all the bricks and beams had dissolved, and the whole room was open in a direct current to the spiritual world as Krishna's messengers came for Srila Prabhupada. At 7:25, Prabhupada opened his eyes and moved his lips as if speaking Hare Krishna, and then his jaw dropped, his complexion darkened, and he went still. Our beloved Srila Prabhupada had departed, Tamal Krishna wrote in his diary. He had been surrounded by loving disciples, chanting the holy names of Krishna, lying peacefully on his bed in Ramanreti, Vrindavan, the sacred land where Krishna and his friends used to sport. His head was pointing toward the deities of Krishna Balaram, his forehead decorated with chandan, and a large tulsi leaf with photos of them and Radha Krishna and pictures of Lord Nrsimhadev and Prabhupada's Guru Maharaj nearby. A volume of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita laid beside his pillow. Holding tulsi in his right hand, he had departed and returned to the lotus feet of Krishna, from whence he had come. It was 7:25 p.m. on Gaur Chaturthi Titi, the 4th day of the light half of the moon of Kartik, 5 minutes after the beginning of Amrita Yoga, the most auspicious time of the day. 7:25, Bharadraj wrote in his journal, Prabhupada enters my heart in a flood of tears. The sun of the world has set. The shelter of the world has entered Vaikuntha. Harinam continues on and on. So then he just describes the room. Everyone was crying and wailing, and the kirtan was going wild. And it said, he writes this amazing thing about how they took Prabhupada around Vrindavan. That morning, the residents of Vrindavan awaited their last darshan of the great Acharya of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, who had spread Vrindavan's glories throughout the world. At 7:30, the Goswamis of the 7 main temples arrived. They came to Krishna Balaram Mandir to escort Prabhupada's divine form to their respective deities. So imagine they came out of their temples to bring Prabhupada. He was sitting on the Vyasasana. They had arranged for him to be sitting up, and they took Prabhupada to each of their temples. He was sitting straight up, legs crossed, wearing his hat and chadar in his flower-decorated palanquin, covered with garlands offered by disciples the night before. Narayan Maharaj led kirtan as we brought Prabhupada into the courtyard, again circumambulated his body 4 times, and began our procession with uproarious chanting Maha Sankirtan. Rajabasis came out from their homes and shops to watch, standing on steps and balconies and alongside the road, calling out Jai Prabhupada to honor Vrindavan's favorite son, most famous saint, and international ambassador. All these hundreds of people came from nowhere, Rajesh Kara recalled. I couldn't figure out how everyone had heard about the procession or even how they had heard that Prabhupada had left. I had never seen Vrindavan in such a mood. Everyone came out to pay homage. Wherever we went, the rooftops were packed. As we approached each temple, the head pujari would come out to receive Prabhupada, and the kirtan would rise to a crescendo, and they would chant, Jai Madan Mohan, Jai Radha Damodar, Jai Radha Raman, glorifying each deity, and then Jai Prabhupada. Even submerged in an ocean of grief, we devotees also felt proud to be disciples of such an illustrious, exalted, empowered guru. So it's just, all the devotees who were there have written memoirs, and they all have something about it in their books, and it's really powerful to read and remember what it was like also at the end of Prabhupada being with us. And I was thinking how everything has gone on so much, even, expanded exponentially since Prabhupada has departed, and how we associate with Prabhupada still every day through prayer and gratitude and reflection and kirtanam, reading about him and reading his books. Srila Prabhupada is an equal opportunity guru, the Jagat Guru, Param Guru, the Shaktivesh avatar, glorified by devotees and lay people, even the world over, by rich and by poor, by famous people, by political leaders. Prabhupada is appreciated and glorified. If you love Prabhupada, he will love you back. If you pray to serve him, he will reveal what he wants you to do. So that is what I do every day. Just pray somehow to be useful to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mother Nitya. So, because it's a weekday, we don't have that many people, and usually the MC sits here to call the next person, to let the person know they've gone more than 5 minutes, or in rare cases that they're talking about something they shouldn't be talking about. We don't really have the 5-minute problem now, because we only have, right now, about 5 women and 6 men. I'm sure that will increase, but yeah, we're encouraging everyone to speak. Oh yeah, we have Zoom also. That's true. Okay. So maybe we should temple Zoom. How many on Zoom? 5? Do you know, Damodar?
Currently 1, but we're expecting
So,
3 more.
is he ready to speak? Tamahari, would you like to speak? You can hear. He can hear us? Yes. Okay, why don't you speak? Wait. Yeah, we have to adjust for a minute. We'll let you know. We're experimenting. What, should he speak until you did it right? Okay, you want to try?
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Oh, we just lost you. Okay, can you say something now?
Okay.
Okay.
Now?
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Is it starting out?
Yes.
Om Gyana Shri. Is it okay? No.
It's going in and out, but
We've lost the sound.
Now we have sound.
Okay?
keep going and we'll let you know if there's a problem.
Preparing my two biggest I think how I possibly glorify Prabhupada. But then after I studied in you everything present. Unlimited, wonderful. Abilities,
We're not, it's breaking up, it's going in and out, we don't know why.
are we getting?
We hear a few words and then we don't hear a few words. Try again? Okay, we just made a change, you want to try again? Now we hear nothing. Oh. No, now we don't hear anything. So what should we do, Damodar? We should wait? And you'll figure it out later? Or? I think we'll have to wait. He's got to figure it out. So we'll keep you informed. Okay. So, yeah, we'll get back to you. Soma Prabhu, would you like to speak? And then after Soma, Sukada, would you like to speak?
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So this is one of my favorite days to associate with everyone and hear all their stories of Srila Prabhupada and their appreciation. I'm also, extremely grateful. I'll never be sufficiently grateful enough because Srila Prabhupada has given me and everyone the ultimate. Srila Prabhupada, he gave us everything. He taught us how to live. He taught us how to die. He taught us how to live in separation of our spiritual master. It's overwhelming at times to think of how fortunate we are that we've come into contact with Srila Prabhupada. Just before coming up here, I was remembering, and it was the day I got initiated in Boston, July 18th, 1971. And they also installed the Radha Gopi Ballava deities in Boston. And as Sasrup Maharaj was doing the Abhishek, Srila Prabhupada asked his servant, his name was Aravinda at that time, to go get his glasses and the Brahma Samhita because he wanted to read during the Abhishek. So his servant brought his glasses and the book, and Srila Prabhupada put on his glasses, and he was sitting on a cushion on the floor. And I can remember he was just in such a, hard to describe, but a loving mood. And he chanted all of the Brahma Samhita prayers. And he took his time. He chanted in a very slow tune, one that we had never heard before at that time. But it was something like, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. And he sang, every verse in that book. And he did it with such love and devotion. It was just amazing to be in his presence like that. But anyways, now we're in his separation, which is another kind of association through his instructions and through his teachings. And like I say, I can't even imagine my good fortune, and I'll never be sufficiently grateful enough to have his association. So, Hare Krishna, thank you very much.
Mother Sukada, followed by Adikarta. It's said when you're with the person, you see them in front of you, and when you're in separation, you see them everywhere. And you know how when Prabhupada would come, everybody would come and be fired up, and then a certain group of devotees would leave, like he's gone. But in separation, he's always present.
So one of my favorite verses, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastri Kai, Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Translated as the verdict of all revealed scriptures is that by even a moment's association with the pure devotee, one can attain all success. And Lavamatra is actually 1/11th of a second. It's hard to imagine, but just with that association is enough to make your life a complete success. So I just took a few moments of my association with Srila Prabhupada. Waiting in the Miami airport in 1975 for you to appear, I knew you already, as I had already associated with your devotees and read your books. I wanted to be a devotee. I wanted to serve you. When you emerged effulgent and smiling, Nartaka Gopal and I placed rose petals in your path. I knew that this moment in my life totally changed everything. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastri Hoy. Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. During your stay in Miami, you gave class every night under the banyan trees. Your words of wisdom reverberated throughout the atmosphere and still do. Abhaya prasadam and your guarantee to human birth, you exclaimed. But there are some species of monkeys considered human, you added. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastri Hoy. Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. While in traveling Sankirtan, we stopped in Philadelphia for initiations in your association. It was so crowded, and I couldn't get into the temple room or on the porch. I walked down the long walkway. I picked some marigolds to offer you when you were ready to leave. It started to rain, and I felt foolish standing there in the rain waiting for you to come, but not foolish enough to alter my plan. When you came by, I put out my marigolds, and you graciously accepted them. Thank you very much, you kindly said. Jai Srila Prabhupada, I chanted with a heart full of gratefulness. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastri Hoy. Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. In New York in 1976, myself, Nartaka Gopal, Andarup, and Haris Tana were flown up for the occasion. The next morning, everyone rushed to the Rath site. I decided to stay at the building with my friend Dira, as I wanted to see Srila Prabhupada before anything else. Dira and I peddled flowers, waiting for Prabhupada to come down from his room. We were expecting kartals, mridangas, and voices to precede his appearance, but suddenly he was present before us. I dropped to the ground to pay my obeisances while Dira thoughtfully took a photo. Off Prabhupada went, and off we went to try to catch up with his car with all of our petals. Miraculously, we were able to offer our petals and pull Srila Prabhupada on Subhadra Devi's cart down Fifth Avenue. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastri Hoy. Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. In India, we were invited to take your darshan upon arriving in Mayapur after a long flight. I had endeavored to find raw macadamia nuts, as I knew you liked them, and I knew they shouldn't be cooked by non-devotees. When we bowed down after entering your room, Nartaka Gopal was wondering if it was okay that we came, if Prabhupada was happy with us. She turned up her head to see Srila Prabhupada looking at us while smiling and nodding. Yes, it's okay. I offered him the gift of nuts as he was departing, and he asked 3 times what the gift was. Finally, I was able to respond, and he smiled, saying, Acha. Sadhusanga, sadhusanga, sarvashastrik hoy. Lava macha sadhusanga, sarvasiddhi hoy. There was a large pandal in several cities we traveled to with you. We eagerly distributed books and listened attentively. Even though we couldn't understand the language, it didn't matter. One day, while distributing books, though feeling quite ill in Delhi, you came by in a car. You held up your hands in pranams, blessing us all. Sadhusanga, sadhusanga, sarvashastra koi. Lavamacha sadhusanga, sarvasiddhi koi. At the Calcutta temple, we heard Srila Prabhupada was arriving, and Nartaka and I sat on the stairs chanting in anticipation. 1 hour, 2 hours went by. Prabhupada isn't coming, someone reported. Disappointed, we went up the stairs. Then again we heard, Srila Prabhupada is coming. Back we went to take our position on the stairs. Another hour later we heard, no, Prabhupada isn't coming. This time we stayed put. We didn't believe it. Shortly after, Prabhupada arrived with great fanfare. Our garlands were placed on Srila Prabhupada as he smiled ecstatically. Sadhusanga, sadhusanga, sarvashastra koi. Lava macha sadhusanga, sarvasiddhi hoy. So, this incredible nature of a pure devotee's mercy is that it's ongoing. So that even though Srila Prabhupada has left this world, his mercy and moments are still available through his books, his instructions, his videos, conversations, and his devotees that carry on his mission. These moments are as powerful now as they ever were, and the proof is that many souls are still taking up the process. Let's always hanker for these moments and culture and appreciation for each other and the service that we all do together. Oddly enough, last night, I always read some Bhagavatam from my Kindle before I take rest. So it was the story of Lord Indra and his spiritual master, Brihaspati. And it explains that Lord Indra and the demigods, in all their opulence were sitting there. And Brihaspati came in, the spiritual master. And it said because Lord Indra and the demigods were so caught up in their own importance and in their opulence that Lord Indra didn't offer him a seat, he didn't acknowledge his presence. So Brihaspati, he just disappeared, basically. He had so much spiritual tejas, he just disappeared. So immediately, Lord Indra, he understood that he had made a big offense. And he tried to find him, and he tried to make up for it, but he couldn't find him anywhere. And then, as a result, explained that he lost all his opulence, and that ultimately the demons took advantage of this weak moment, and they conquered the demigods. So they lost all their opulence, they lost everything. So I was thinking it's really a good lesson for us. One of the reasons that they didn't give Brihaspati his due respect is because he came every day, and so they're just kind of used to him. Prabhupada says in the purport that familiarity breeds contempt. So I thought for myself and for all of us, we have to be careful that we never ever take what we've been given for granted. It's such an incredible gift. I mean, he's saved all of our lives and ongoing so many lives. So, sadhusanga, sadhusanga, sarvashastri koi, lava macha sadhusanga, sarvasiddhi hoy. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Mother Ragamika, you have to do your offering before 9 o'clock, so it would be better to do it now. It's okay. It's okay. All right.
Hare Krishna. I was going to say that Prabhupada, he never really left, of course, because he left his instructions And even though his body passed away, still his presence is becoming more and more felt throughout the world. And so just a couple of nice incidents that happened recently was that Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of England, who just came into power 2 days ago, the day after he came into power, when you'd think he'd be worrying about, who's going to be in his cabinet, what's he going to do, he goes to the manor and he meets the devotees there, he goes to see Srila Prabhupada. That's amazing, isn't it? So there's two parties, political parties in the UK. There's the Labour Party and the Conservative Party. So Rishi Sunak's Conservative. But the leader of the Labour Party, his name is Sturmer, something Sturmer. And he recently he's a vegetarian, actually. And he met Kripamoya Prabhu, who's the father of Janavi Harrison, and they had lunch together. So the leader of the Labour Party and the leader of the Conservative Party both have association with devotees. I think Prabhupada will be very happy about that. So, when Srila Prabhupada passed away, I never spoke to Prabhupada, ever, once. And I didn't realize what a great personality Srila Prabhupada was. Obviously, I didn't even cry when Prabhupada passed away. I have to be honest, you're supposed to cry. But my attachment, the kind of inconceivable thing about Prabhupada is, even though Prabhupada is not physically present anymore, my attachment and appreciation for him grows so much every day, because I see what a great devotee he is, and I'm learning so much from him all the time. And just reading his books, like here, there's a very beautiful verse which he's translated in a very beautiful way. It's from the 4th canto, chapter 9, verse number 12. He says, "O Lord, who have a lotus navel, if a person happens to associate with the devotee whose heart always hankers after your lotus feet, seeking always their fragrance," which is Prabhupada. He's always hankering after the Lord's lotus feet, seeking always their fragrance. He is never attached to the material body or in a bodily relationship to offspring, friends, home, wealth, and wife, which are very, very dear to materialistic persons. Indeed, he does not care for them, because we don't want to be hard-hearted or, shun our family or anything like that. He's not saying that. But ultimately, your attachments disappear, and your attachment for Krishna and for Srila Prabhupada grows by associating with Srila Prabhupada, by hearing his lectures, by following his instructions. So the last part of the purport, he says, because a devotee knows that he is not the body, he is never affected by bodily happiness or distress. He is not interested in bodily relationships with wife, children, etc., or in the distress and happiness which comes from these things. This is the special advantage of being a devotee. This status of life is possible only when a person is interested in associating with a pure devotee who always enjoys the fragrance of the lotus feet of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Mother Gambika, followed by Tamahar Prabhu. Once a devotee asked another devotee, how do we get Prabhupada's personal association? So the devotee asked Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, what did you say? He said, well, through your service and books. Prabhupada said, ask him if he's chanting 16 rounds a day. Personal association through following the instructions.
Hare Krishna, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pujarne Nirvisesha Shanyavadi Paschatya De Satarne Srila Prabhupada, thank you for your patience, allowing me to continue to associate with your devotees, so sincere and dedicated. Please forgive me for my offenses and help me, please reveal to me the anarthas in my heart that I need to work on exterminating. I wanted to say something to recall two stories of after Srila Prabhupada's departure, of Prabhupada appearing to two different devotees. One event took place in the 80s in New York. A devotee named Niti Laksha. She was a very dedicated book distributor, very dedicated and steady and reliable. And also Rasakya, disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Actually, Niti Laksha is a disciple of one of Prabhupada's disciples. And of course, Rasakya would often frequent New York in the 80s, although she was presently residing in Spain. And one of her services there was to dress Srila Prabhupada. In the winter, also, I don't want to give it away yet. So Niti Laksha has a dream wherein Srila Prabhupada appeared to her, his steady book distributor, and said, "Tell Rasikya, thank you for warming my clothes." Now she had no idea what this meant, so she was anxious for Rasikya's next visit. And when she did arrive and come, she immediately asked her, "What does this mean? Prabhupada came to me and said, thank you." And she says, "Oh my gosh, in the winter, I would iron, even though the clothes were already ironed, but she would iron them again just before putting them on Srila Prabhupada." So personal, so sensitive to her, Prabhupada's presence. And then another story is of, in Prabhupada village in Sandy Ridge, North Carolina, our god sister Aradhya was preparing to leave her body, and Madan Mohan Mohini, our god sister, was steadily there with her. Harakanta was there. Now it was getting closer to the end, and Aradhya asked Madan Mohan Mohini, "Please stay with me." Now, Madan was already totally exhausted, totally wiped out. But because of this request, surely she stayed. And she was there, and Harakanta, and when Aradhya left, they saw her arms going up and saying, "Srila Prabhupada." Okay, so what's interesting is that here in Alachua, Nadaka Chandrika, who's a very close friend of Madan Mohan Mohini, had a dream wherein Srila Prabhupada told her, "Tell Madan Mohan Mohini, thank you for helping Aradhya." So we can't underestimate, if we can be personal in every service we render. This is Srila Prabhupada's movement, the ISKCON movement, and any participation or contribution one makes, if they can simply be personally conscious of Srila Prabhupada in that rendering of service, that's all that we need, is to strengthen that relationship with Srila Prabhupada. and he's accessible to everyone, all of his faithful followers. I happened to come across this quote, maybe some of you saw it by the vacuum store by Ward's. It said, "Love is not determined by who you live with, but by who you cannot live without." And I felt a little hope that maybe I have some little love, because I cannot live without Srila Prabhupada's morning program, without his books, and without any service at his lotus feet. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So Tamar Prabhu followed by Samapriya.
Hare Krishna. Om Jnana Tirandasha Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksarunuitami Natasma Shri Gurave Namaha. By the wonders of our technology, and Damodar Prabhu, he's transported me from the screen. So thank you. I gave up on it. Sorry. I was beginning to say that I always feel anxiety on Prabhupada's appearance and disappearance days. Not anxiety about the day itself, but because I always have to speak, and I never know what I could possibly say to glorify Srila Prabhupada sufficiently. And then after you start writing things and start thinking about it, then you can't possibly think, how am I going to do this in 5 minutes? So, because there's so much to say about Srila Prabhupada. So I try to keep it to little sutras and, quick statements. I was thinking to focus on one quality of Srila Prabhupada, because we know he's an ocean of unlimited qualities. Even his material, supposedly material qualities were amazing, and then that's not what to speak of the incredible spiritual Shakti that he exhibited in this material world. So I think one of the most important qualities of Srila Prabhupada was the quality of mercy. And of course, this is one of the qualities inherent within the spiritual master and the relationship with his disciples. The merciful nature of Srila Prabhupada is actually a manifestation of the mercy of Krishna. So it's very, very powerful. And we've heard from some of other speakers some of the examples that devotees have experienced. In Bhagavatam 3:31-16, Srila Prabhupada says in his purport, "The spiritual master is therefore the mercy manifestation of the Supreme Person. The conditioned soul has to take direct instruction from the spiritual master, and thus he gradually becomes enlightened to the path of Krishna consciousness." I was thinking, of course, Prabhupada showed this in many, many ways, but I was thinking of two sort of categories, or two ways we could see that mercy from Srila Prabhupada. One was obviously his teachings and his setting personal example as Acharya, and also his direct dealings with disciples, where sometimes the spiritual master actually has to correct or discipline disciples. That's disciple means one who takes discipline from the spiritual master. And I think the second way was a little different, was through his love, his warmth, his encouragement of devotees, and showing us how Krishna consciousness is really about personal relationships. And to help us understand our personal relationship with Krishna, we were so fortunate to have the personal relationship of his most pure and perfect devotee, so that we could understand that and understand the love that Srila Prabhupada had for us. Adi Leela 782, Srila Prabhupada said, "When a disciple very perfectly makes progress in spiritual life, this gladdens the spiritual master, and he smiles in ecstasy, thinking, 'How successful my disciple has become.' He feels so glad that he smiles as he enjoys the progress of the disciple, just as a smiling parent enjoys the activity of a child who's trying to stand up and crawl perfectly." So that this was a wonderful analogy, because Prabhupada was like our father, maybe our grandfather, we could even say. And he actually had both qualities, that he had very high standards, expectations of us, but he also was very loving and encouraging in a very personal manner. So I thought I'd just give a couple of personal examples of some experiences that demonstrated these two things. His warmth and encouragement. He's always encouraging any attempt at devotional service, and always made every devotee feel like Prabhupada personally cared for them. Not just he made them feel, he did personally care for us, and he demonstrated that. I've told most of these stories before. I only have a few. I don't have a whole lot of personal experience with Srila Prabhupada, so you'll have to forgive me if you've heard these before, but I figured it's always good to hear about Srila Prabhupada. Example. My oldest daughter, Gopinath, was about 7 years old when Srila Prabhupada visited Miami in 1974, or 75, I don't remember. It was 75, I think, wasn't it? Subhati, you were there. 75 must have been. And everyone had gone out and Sankirtan. There was hardly anybody, around the temple. And so my wife Mantrini came with their daughter Gopinath, and Gopinath had drawn this picture she wanted to give Srila Prabhupada. And she was 7 years old, and she's a good artist, but actually, it's a child's picture. It looks like a child drew it and had little sequins, glued to it, glittery stuff, and very childlike. Anyway, Trini goes over, and Shruti Kirti, of course, who is, we all know, the most wonderful servant of Srila Prabhupada, because he always let us get in, where some did not so much as well. He was always sort of the, someone said equal opportunity. He was the equal opportunity servant, let everybody see Srila Prabhupada. So Shruti Kirti says, well, sure, go on in. He's not doing anything. Well, of course, he must have nobody, he wasn't doing anything. But, in other words, he wasn't with anyone. So go on in. So my wife goes in with, Matrini goes in with Gopinath, and he says, Srila Prabhupada, my daughter has made a picture for you. And so he hands it to her. The picture, and it's Krishna, with all the little glittery stuff and everything. And Prabhupada looks at it for a while, studies it, and he says very gravely, very great art. Very great art. I mean, it was very great art because it was of Krishna, obviously. Remember, it wasn't the story about Siddhanta when there was an article written, he'd count how many times they said Krishna, and that's how he would judge. So because it was of Krishna, Prabhupada considered it very great art. And of course, very encouraging. Very, very encouraging. He didn't say, well, maybe when you grow up, you'll be able to do something good. No, very, very encouraging. Of course, my personal interactions with Srila Prabhupada, as I said, were very limited. My biggest one mostly had to do with the ice cream. So, of course, you've all heard this probably. But when Prabhupada was in Potomac, we made ice cream for Srila Prabhupada, and I used the we very collectively. My wife made the ice cream. And I bought the ingredients, and so, which actually comes into the story. So anyway, after Prabhupada's evening program or his darshan, so I went there with the ice cream. And I was there, and I could see Srila Prabhupada in the next room. There were quite a few people around, sannyasis and all that. And they said, he's already had ice cream. He got ice cream from New Vrindavan. They flew in on dry ice. New Vrindavan's cows, personal ice cream. I thought, well, I'm not going to compete with that, am I? But Prabhupada's here, and he says, what is it? He has ice cream? And I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. And he says, what flavor? I said, mango. He goes, oh, bring it in. So we hit the right flavor. Prabhupada loved mango, we all know. And so I brought it in, and he tasted it, and he said, this one is the best. He says, bring it, can you bring it every night? Very happy to. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. Then he asked me what service I was doing, and I said, I'm distributing your big books in the airport here, which I did for about 2 months of my life. Fortunately, it was during that time, so I thought it made me look a little bit, I thought Prabhupada, of course he appreciated. I realized later I could have said anything and he would have appreciated the service. He would have appreciated everybody's service, whatever they were doing. And that's just the way Srila Prabhupada was. He made everybody, and the thing is, a tiny little interaction, no great philosophical discussions, but how precious all those moments were to us, of just having those moments with Srila Prabhupada. And I've said this before, but there was a presence about Srila Prabhupada that you really can't describe, and you don't really get it even through a video and like that. And I mean, I always saw Prabhupada as just effulgent, the spiritual energy radiating from him, and many devotees will say the same thing. Anyway, so many experiences, and again, Prabhupada was always including everybody. For instance, when we went to San Francisco. Were you in the San Francisco party, Sugata? No, that was the year before, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay, so anyway, we went from Miami all the way out to San Francisco. That was sort of the, our temple president, anyway, their temple president was very expert at, how to motivate devotees. So the goal was you were supposed to do so much per day, and you got like a course of a month at a time, crossing the whole country till you got to San Francisco, where Srila Prabhupada was going to be for Rath Yatra. Well, that was pretty good incentive. So we did that, and we got there, and at any rate, the story I wanted to tell, though, was Prabhupada's giving class. There's the women and children are there, and all the babies are there. And, of course, not ours, but one baby starts crying. And, of course, some sannyasis come and say, get all the children out of here, So they had to go back outside. And, of course, Mantrini's very upset. Here I am. I can't even hear my spiritual master speak like that. So the class is over. And suddenly the doors open, and it says, Srila Prabhupada wants all the children. So the sea of saffron has to part, and all the women and mothers go up with their babies and their children, and of course Prabhupada had his tray of cookies. That's the first time I'd seen him do it. He probably did it regularly, but anyway, so he was giving out cookies to all the children. And of course, it was very, very pleasing to all the mothers because they had their opportunity now. And I remember Lalita, she couldn't get the cookie right. She was very young then, holding out her hand or whatever. So she probably took it and put it in her mouth, my daughter. So very nice. Anyway, so Prabhupada was always showing in these little ways just how he encouraged everybody, whatever their service was, whatever their status of life was, everyone felt very included and very much loved by Srila Prabhupada. And then on the other hand, he had high expectations. And it's not like, he was not sentimental or, like sentimental in the just sort of emotional way. No, he expected us to be Krishna conscious and help him in his mission. I was thinking even from my initiation letter, he said to us, he says, you are all intelligent boys and girls. Therefore, my request to you is that you study the science of Krishna consciousness and solve all the problems of the world by systematic propaganda as far as you're able to do it. So, high expectations. Go solve all the problems of the world. And I have not yet done that. I haven't fulfilled the desire of my spiritual master, so I have a long way to go. But just some quick examples of that. Is it all right? Can I go on a couple of minutes? I'll try to be quick. I always don't like that when everyone runs over. Again, back to when he was in Miami. This is about the high standard Srila Prabhupada had, and he wanted us to manage things very carefully and very much be attentive to detail. It wasn't like it was okay, you're just a good preacher, a book distributor, whatever it might be. No, especially the managers, he expected us to be very, very scrupulous and set a high standard. One thing, when he came to Miami, he was met in the airport, and he asked about, of course, book distribution, and the temple president said, we distributed 10,000 back to Godheads this month, which I think we did, or at least we ordered them, and we were distributing them. And so Srila Prabhupada turned and says, yes, what about my big books? In other words, yes, you're doing that, but how can you improve? How can you increase? This is what I'd like to see you do now. And also, while he was there, Miami, the whole temple was in Coconut Grove, was kind of under banyan trees, and it was on a coral reef sort of. Things didn't really grow very well. So his backyard was completely bare dirt. So they raked leaves all over it to cover it. So when Srila Prabhupada goes, first thing he does, he looks out, he's going up the porch to his house and says, why are all the leaves in the yard? Why haven't you raked them? And so they try to explain to him, well, Srila Prabhupada, we can't grow grass here. So we thought it's better to have leaves. So, of course, Srila Prabhupada looks up the street, looks down the street. All the neighbors have grass. Why can't you grow grass? So in other words, he did not want us to look like we were slobby or inferior or that we couldn't take care of things. He wanted us to take care of Krishna's property very well and also very prudently. Because when he was in Potomac, we had just finished the temple room. There's a new temple there. And the temple president really was spending money to get rid of Srila Prabhupada. He loved Srila Prabhupada and he wanted it to be nice. But he was really spending too much, and it took us years of Sankirtan to pay all the debts off. But anyway, he got these beautiful chandeliers. They're still there in the Potomac Temple, and for the temple. And But Srila Prabhupada came and he sits down. How much do those chandeliers cost? And the temple president says, $5,000, Srila Prabhupada. This is 1976. It's a lot of money. Prabhupada says, be very careful how you spend Krishna's money. So in other words, yes, it's for the temple, it's for the deities, but Prabhupada knew everything. He knew we didn't have the money to spend that kind of money on chandeliers, at the time. Better do something simple and later when anyway, like I said, we were very much in debt. So all the things Prabhupada was so attentive to, every detail he was aware of. He said, what's that little red light on the transformer outside the temple in Potomac there? Why is the red light on? All of us said, we don't know, Prabhupada. We had no idea. He says, okay. And so that was in the summer. Later, Janmashtami comes. We have a huge, all kinds of electricity going, all kinds of lights everywhere. The transformer blows up. And that was, so, apparently we didn't bother to check out why there was a light on the transformer. It was probably going out. Anyway, but Prabhupada was so aware of these things, and he wanted us to be aware, and he wanted us to take care of Krishna's property, take care of everything, and also take care of the devotees nicely as he demonstrated. So he was really the perfect teacher. He was a perfect spiritual master, perfect friend to all. And we could all be glorifying Srila Prabhupada here for months all together. So thank you so much, Srila Prabhupada, for everything. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mahaprabhu. So, Samapriya will speak now, and then we will have Brahmatirtha via Zoom after. And does anyone know where Bhumi is? She left. Yeah.
Okay, Hare Krishna. I'm looking at that chandelier, and I know it didn't cost $5,000. First, I would like to read some quotes from Srila Prabhupada about separation. My spiritual master, Saraswati Goswami Thakur, may appear to be physically not present, but still, because I try to serve his instruction, I never feel separated from him. I expect that all of you should follow these instructions. Please be happy in separation. I am separated from my Guru Maharaj since 1936, but I am always with him so long I work according to his direction. Although this is the disappearance day of Om Vishnupad Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, so there is nothing to be lamented. Although we feel separation, that feeling is there, but spiritually, there is no difference between appearance and separation. So far I am concerned, I do not factually feel any separation from my spiritual master because I am trying to serve him according to his desire. Please always try to remember me by my teachings, and we shall always be together. Just like I have written in the first publications of Srimad Bhagavatam, the spiritual master lives forever by his divine instruction, and the disciple lives with him. Because I have always served my Guru Maharaj and followed his teachings, I am now even never separated from him. The biggest thrust Krishna gave all of us into developing a spiritual relationship with Srila Prabhupada was when he left his Vapu form. It at least began to, it was like a tsunami, and we were forced into it. At that point, if we did not at least begin to learn to surrender to Krishna's all-good transcendental plan, our spiritual lives would be in great jeopardy. My dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to you, my most exalted spiritual master. It has now been 45 years since you have withdrawn your Vapu form. That is a long time, comparatively speaking, for a conditioned soul. In this world of names, if there is separation for 45 years, the relationship has mostly faded away into the annals of time. But this is not true in regard to you, Srila Prabhupada. My relationship with you has only deepened. How is it that we are separated? And how is it that we are not separated? Day and night I think of you. I hear from you and pray to you. I read your books and chant with you and offer food and drink to you. Absorbing myself in what you say, my life is based on your instructions, and though imperfectly executed, I do my best to serve you. You are the most important person in my life, and I take shelter of your words to guide my all endeavors. Yes, we are separated, and I long for your glance and encouragement. And I say to you, Srila Prabhupada, through all the plights thrown against me by the perilous modes of nature, you are with me, bequeathing the solution of faith, patience, tolerance, and chanting the sublime holy names of the Maha Mantra. You are with me, and you are with me when I declare boldly and when I am silenced. You are with me, extracting me from the sinkhole of this precarious world. You are with me, delivering me to the Lord of my life, to whom I have dedicated myself, and from whom I never again dare to stray. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. I pray to never be separated from you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Samapriya. So we are now going to have Brahmatirtha via Zoom, and then Hari Puja, you can speak after.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, my obeisances to all the assembled Vaishnavas. It's a great honor to be able to speak here. The University of Florida was the center of a lot. Amarendra had just become, was a major leader of the anti-war movement. University of Florida was one of the happening places in America, and the movement was starting to grow, and everything was really together. And then the first words out of Prabhupada, "Thank you for inviting me to this remote place, so very far from Mayapur." And the devotees who were there told me it kind of burst their bubble. We weren't the center of the universe. And that's all. I just wanted to share a little bit with you that way. One of the professors who was there was probably a graduate postdoc named Dinesh Shah, was walking by, and he saw Prabhupada, and he said, "What's this? Some Indian sadhu here." And he went and heard him speak, and he was quite the atheist, I might add. And then Dinesh eventually became very devotional. Recently, Krishna House, Dinesh is retired, had a fundraising campaign for a new kitchen. And they've only raised 20% of what was needed. And Dinesh said, "Well, it's Diwali. I'll give you all the rest." And just the potency of just having heard Prabhupada at that time had its impact. So I'll tell two stories. One is what happened when the first time I met Prabhupada. That was before I met Prabhupada in Mayapur. And I was in Calcutta, and I went to India basically to try to understand the Gita. And I was curious who were the real, I guess I didn't have the word then, but I used my current verbiage, who was a real sadhu? Because there was a lot of weirdos coming to America, Prabhupada. And so I was in Calcutta, and I saw a sign, Hare Krishna Festival. And Giriraj Brahmachari was speaking, and it was such a brilliant talk that 1971, I remember it to this day, how he spoke to an audience of a very fancy part of Calcutta, Tony part. They're all in suits and ties, and he was in the Bengali Vaishnav dress. And he said, "I come from a very wealthy family, and I've given it up. Why would I give up something unless I had something better?" And it was so shocking to me that I said, finally, somebody's making sense. So I said, I have to learn more. And devotees told me where the temple was. And I went there and there was Prabhupada sitting in a room, invited me in, and I sat down. And in the back of the room, there were two devotees arguing. Now, I was told that this was the guru, the person who knew everything. Why don't they just ask him? Why would they be arguing? I'll finish that piece of it in a moment. So then Prabhupada asked me, "So you have any questions?" And I had just come from Bodh Gaya, the place where the Buddha received enlightenment. The sapling of that tree has allegedly been preserved all this time. And I sat under the very same tree and nothing happened. So anyway, but I had a lot of Buddhism in my mind. I, of course, read various books on Buddhism. So I said to Prabhupada, "Why not Buddhism?" And Prabhupada gave a very typical answer. Very, very typical of what Prabhupada says. So what did the Buddha say? Prabhupada never wanted to discuss isms. He wanted to discuss philosophy. And he made that same point to me later on when I met with him in Mayapur. Not isms, but philosophy. So he said, "So what does the Buddha say?" So I said, "Fourfold noble and ate this," or was it ate that, or for this? And I was just, my tongue was just all tied up. I couldn't remember. Finally, I blurted out, "I don't know." So Prabhupada said, "So why are you asking?" And then after that, I just sat quiet. I said, okay, I know when to just listen. So I listened. But I was still curious. These devotees are fighting. How could they be fighting? And Prabhupada just sat there. They're in the back of the room, not very loud, but arguing. Well, one of the devotees was about to, as we would say in those days, bloop. The other devotee was trying to convince him. And what Prabhupada did, I found out, is if he had said to a devotee who's going to bloop, "Don't do that," then the devotee will have two offenses in his name. One, leaving and mean not following the principles, and two, disobeying the orders of the guru. So Prabhupada had such wisdom, he knew when to say something, when not to. I pray that one day I'll get that kind of wisdom. And the final time I met Prabhupada is we were at the Life Comes from Life conference around mid-October in 1977. And Sarup Damodar Brahmachari then had invited 5 of us scientists to come and prepare papers on the topic of life comes from life. That's still the main subject of the Bhaktivedanta Institute. We just call it consciousness studies now, which is a more modern language, but it's still the same topic. Life comes from life. So I did a paper on evolution, and Sariputta had a paper on information theory, and Srila Damodar and Madhava had something on chemistry. I forgot what Jnana spoke about. And it was when, well, first I'll say how I got to see Prabhupada. I ended up being on the same plane as a GBC man, Atreya Rishi. My plane had stopped in Tehran, and Atreya had joined us. And so this way I went to Vrindavan with him. And because he's a GBC, he got right into Prabhupada's room. And I'm not that dumb. I knew to tag along with him. And we were very close friends. So he took me in, went and see Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was emaciated. He looked like his skin and bones. It's not the Prabhupada you see on the Vyasa-san. He had dark glasses on because he could hardly see. And the light would hurt his eyes. So even though the room was dark, he had dark glasses and so thin. And we walked in, he saw the looks on our face, and we were shocked because we just wasn't the Prabhupada we knew in the physical appearance. And Prabhupada started laughing. He laughed so hard, his belly was going up and down. He was laughing and laughing. And he turns to Atreya and he says, I've told you 1,000,000 times I'm not this body. Now you can see, because he saw the shocked look in her face. So he's using that as a preaching point. You can see my body's gone. I'm just living in my bones. Do you believe me? I'm not this body. And we were both like shocked by Prabhupada. And he spoke so strongly. And Prabhupada took that typical Prabhupada humor. He took our shocked look as something very funny and made it into an incredible preaching point. Then every night of the conference, Prabhupada would call us into his room. He wanted to know, what are your Sankirtan scores? That's not the words he used. Our Sankirtan scores as BI nerds was, what were the arguments the atheists were giving at our conference, and what was the arguments we were giving? And he wanted to know what the arguments were. So we would present to Prabhupada what we argued and what they argued. And Prabhupada was very proud of us. And one story we told Prabhupada that was quite funny, and Prabhupada appreciated it. One atheist scientist from, I think, the University of Delhi had come, and he had worked with liquid crystals, those toys, when you touch it, all kinds of colors shoot out of it. And he said, this can explain how a little input gives a lot of output, and that can explain evolution. And he was thinking he'd get the Nobel Prize. So he gave his talk, which frankly wasn't philosophically very astute, but he was going for it. And then after his talk, and we related the story to Prabhupada, after his talk, people in the audience would raise their hands and ask questions. And one lady had her hand raised, and he wouldn't call on her. Now, what I'm telling you could only happen in India. Finally, no one's hand is raised. The lady's hand is raised. He has to call on her. So he says, yes, ma'am. And she says, by the way, that is my husband speaking. And he may talk all this atheist nonsense to you, but every night he goes and does artik. And of course, that can only happen in India. And Prabhupada quite appreciated that. Many of you know this story, but I'll just repeat the final story. One night, Prabhupada called us in, and because he couldn't see well, Tamal Krishna Maharaj says, here are your scientists, here's Srila Damodar and Sariputta, Brahmatirtha, Jnana, Madhava, said our names are all here, and they're all wearing suits and ties, which Prabhupada wanted us to wear. Suits, ties, Kuntimala and Tilak was our uniform. And Prabhupada said, get them chairs. But we were a floor society. So Sri Damodar says, we don't need chairs, Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, even stronger, get them chairs. So there were only 2 chairs then. We were a floor society. 2 of us sat on one, 2 on the other, and one of us squatted down pretending we were on a chair in order to please Srila Prabhupada. We wanted to kind of just pretend we were on a chair. And then we gave Prabhupada our daily report, and he was very pleased at our efforts, our very nascent efforts to confront atheism. Okay, thank you very much. Great honor. I will now be an avid listener. Hare Krishna.
Beautiful. Okay, Hari Priya will speak, and then Achyutananda Prabhu. After Hari Priya.
Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances. Once upon a time, a young teenage girl searched the world far and wide to find an answer to life's questions. When she came upon the message illuminated in Bhagavad Gita as it is, she knew deep in her heart that she had found the only logical and real answers. Surrendering to your lotus feet lifted her from the burdens of the present-day world, and she began to understand that the mercy of the shade of your lotus feet would change her perception of life forever. Being confident of your protection, she went on with her worldly life and duties side by side with her service to your mission. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. You gave me a philosophy to live life by, but I have to say that my remembrances of you that I want to share today are of a very personal nature, and these simple things have endeared you to me as my mystic master. I pray that I may always remember the simple things that are you alone. Your lion-like stature, although seemingly small, is all-pervading. Your ease in pouring water from your cup into your mouth and swallowing without us even noticing. Your huge smile and soft laugh. Your kindness in acknowledging us when we wanted to offer something, and your mercy when you neglected to acknowledge us if we were proud. Your turtleneck sweaters, your placing a flower behind your ear, the fragrant smell of your transcendental laundry, your airport arrivals and the excitement of the awaiting devotees, your many visits to Los Angeles and the smell of wet paint and freshly planted grass. Your love of giving cookies to the children and enjoying when the small babies reached for your hand. Thank you for continuing to develop these holy places all around the world. You entered the room like a swan, and sometimes devotees would pay obeisances the second you stood to leave the room and the second you came to enter the room. Please let me remember the bliss of the red carpet being rolled out in Los Angeles for your entrance into the temple as flower petals rained from the balcony sky. Please let me remember, Srila Prabhupada, how you held your drinking goblet with your little pinky extended. Please let me remember how the cuffs of your kurta stuck out from under your sweaters. Please let me remember how you tucked that white lily in Brooklyn in your turtleneck's cotton saffron pullover directly under your chin. Please let me remember the grace in which you wrapped your chadar as you glided through the air and magically wrapped it around yourself. Once a sannyasi giving a lecture in your presence said, "Krishna is in his name," and you interrupted, "Oh, he is in his name? Where in his name is he?" The sannyasi fell silent, and then you explained, "Krishna is not in his name, Krishna is his name." How many here today have seen Srila Prabhupada's physical presence? Did you ever see Srila Prabhupada wear his Swami hat at a comical angle, or with the flaps sticking out on both sides of his head? Did you ever see Srila Prabhupada draped comfortably across his sitting place? Did you ever glimpse Srila Prabhupada walking aristocratically, tapping his cane and tilting his head in his acha mood? Did you ever see the large entourage of devotees that greeted him at airports and follow him everywhere? Did you ever notice that Srila Prabhupada was not very tall? Srila Prabhupada said, "ISKCON is very big, I am small." But we never felt that we were in the presence of a small or short man. We always felt the heaviness of his tall orders and his extra large devotion to spread Krishna consciousness. May you, Srila Prabhupada, please continue to bless all of us and your new generations with your remembrance. Thank you.
Achyutananda Prabhu, and Achyutananda Prabhu will be followed by Swahad. Devi, she is on Zoom.
Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksurunmilitam Yena Tasmaya Sri Gurave Namah. So it just prompted me because you're talking about grass and lawns. One time Dinanath was at Watseka LA temple, and he was trimming the weeds in the back of the temple. And he said, Prabhupada came out and he was mad. He said, "Let them grow. In the front, we cut the grass for society and public to see that we are gentlemen, but let them grow in the back. Don't cut them." So we were invited to, Dinanath came to India, was super kirtan leader, and we were all invited by the Scottish Church's college, Prabhupada's college. And we were invited to speak there, but on the way, this pastor stops Dinanath and he says, "What's your name, son?" And he says, "Dinanath." No, what's your real name?" He says, "Donald." He says, "Donald, are you happy?" He says, "I'm diving and surfacing in an ocean of transcendental nectar." And the police, he just couldn't say it. So I spoke at the college, and there was a bust of their founder, and I said, "Well, you have," because the headmaster told me, he said, "You can't talk about deities, you can't chant, can't chant. Just talk about Bhaktivedanta Swami." So we spoke, and I said, "Of course, you do have an image of your founder here, and now that we can chant Hare Krishna all over the world is chanting Hare Krishna except here." Oh, and then he. So Prabhupada had a mystic power. On every page of his books, you'll see these words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You'll see it on every page. Every time Prabhupada gave a lecture, it would cover the whole philosophy. From the Jiva, from Krishna Lila, from Krishna's avatars, from the creation, from the sub-creation. It would cover everything. And he would have one time he would have this way of saying, if you do not catch up to the lotus feet of Krishna, again you will fall into the material ocean of illusion. And he would do this with him like throwing a rock. So there was some young man who kept arguing, and he was just, we thought he's not going to make it. He's arguing too much. He's thinking too much. And one day he did leave. He said, "Oh, this is just a cult. This is a religion. I'm out of here." And he left. And I was with Brahmanandas, and I said to Brahmananda, he fell back into the ocean of illusion. And Brahmananda goes, "Yeah," like this. Bloop. So that became the origin of bloop. So that became our word down in the storefront. If somebody oh, where's Mark? I think he blooped. And so-and-so, he's having all kinds of trouble. I think he's going to bloop. So one time we were up in Prabhupada's room, and he said, "Where's that boy Mark?" And Brahmananda said, "He blooped." And Prabhupada said, "Bloop? What is this bloop?" And so I looked at Brahman and I said, "You started it, so you..." He said, "Well, you've been saying that we fall into the ocean of material, so like a stone falls into the water, it makes that sound, bloop." Brahman said, "Well, then if Mark has blooped, what can be done?" We fell right into it. I spoke to the lady who made the elephant. You know the elephant story? I told her. We're at Kumbh Mela in 76, 77. And Prabhupada was leading us to the Ganges. But that day was the Shaivite day, the Naga sadhus. And they are ahangrahopasakas. Aham means ego, me, myself, and I worship myself. I worship the deity to become the deity, to become myself. So there were all thousands of them in 4 processions were coming down like 10,000 Rudras with tridents and red clothes or no clothes and jata hair, just like Shivas. Thousands of Shivas. And 4 elephants had their mahants sitting on top like this. And they were fat. And they had red eyes from ganja and red eyes coming down. Now the Kumbh Mela is controlled, the crowds are controlled by the Indian military, crack troops. And so that day was the day that Shaivites go first to the Ganges. So they stopped, Prabhupada and us, Kirtan party stopped here, and we let these 4 processions, elephant-led processions, go ahead. They went by, and then they let us go. So later that night we were in Prabhupada's tent, and he said, "You could not get an elephant for me?" But then he left. He said, "That's all right," even though he would get us off the hook. It's too happy to say this story. Anyway. Prithiviteya che jato nagaradigram sarvatra prachar hoibe mornam. This prediction, this prophecy of Bhakti, of Mahaprabhu, that my name will be preached all over the world, Prabhupada is the embodiment of that. And I once told Prabhupada, I said, one of your envious God brothers said, well, if Lord Chaitanya wanted to spread Harinam all over the world, why didn't he go himself? And Prabhupada turned and says, because he saved that glory for me. How do you?
Thank you, Achyutananda Prabhu. So we're now going to have Swaha via Zoom, followed by Divyanga Prabhu. We're ready. Govinda. Swaha, we're ready for you.
Thank you. Hare Namo Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha, Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you so much for this opportunity and this amazing sangha of devotees who've been with Srila Prabhupada, sharing such personal stories. And Achyutananda Prabhu is a hard act to follow, as they say. But I will try to offer what I have written, because then I have timed it and it's not so long, hopefully. So please bear with me. I stayed up several nights to write a very personal account how Srila Prabhupada, you have been there for me as I have faced so many challenges in my service to the TOVP. However, my gratitude list is very, very long, and it would take too long. Also, I'm representing all the TOVP devotees here. Brahmatirtha Prabhu reminded us of what Srila Prabhupada said about being so far away from Mayapur during his visit to Gainesville. However, we living away from Mayapur, especially in the West, we may sometimes think of the TOVP and Mayapur so far away from our immediate service, which is of course important. However, by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, my Prabhu and I feel very fortunate that we live and breathe the TOVP every moment of our lives. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. This service is our lifeline to you, Srila Prabhupada. I'm here to remind everyone of the TOVP and Sri Mayapur Dham. So Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati reveals the secret of Navadvip Dham in his Navadvip Satakam, verse 78. Aradhitam Navavanam Braja Kananam Te Naradhitam Navavanam Braja Eva Dure Aradhito Dvijasuto Braja Nagaraste Naradhito Dvijasuto Natave Krishna. If you worship the 9 islands of Navadvip, you're actually worshipping Vrindavan and can easily gain entrance into that confidential place. If you don't worship and take shelter of Navadvip Dham, Vrindavan will be very far away from you. If someone will worship Dvijasuta Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the son of the Brahman, Jagannath Mishra, that person will attain Rajanagara, Sri Krishna in Vrindavan. If one worships Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is actually Krishna himself in Navadvip, one is performing complete worship of Krishna. If one does not worship Dvijasuta Gora Hari, Lord Krishna will be very far away. Lord Nityananda took Srila Jiva Goswami for the first Navadvip Mandal Parikrama and declared Adbhut Mandir Hoibe Prakash, Gorangir Nitya Lila Hoibe Bikash. An exceedingly wonderful temple will appear from which Gauranga's eternal service will expand all over the world. Lord Nityananda, as we know, is always eager to glorify his Lord. And this pronouncement is his very personal love call to all of us fallen jivas to take part in the Nitya Leela of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mayapur Dham was hidden from the ordinary vision for over 400 years. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was aptly given the title of the seventh Goswami due to his most important contribution of rediscovering Mayapur as the original yoga peeth and his extensive writings following in the footsteps of the exalted six Goswamis. One night from his bhajan kutir across the Jalangi, he had a grand vision of the Adbhut Mandir, illuminating the whole surrounding area. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur sent his Lord Chaitanya, his life and precepts to McGill University in the year 1896, also the year of our Srila Prabhupada's appearance, to lay the foundation of Srila Prabhupada's future preaching and book distribution in the West. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ordered and empowered Srila Prabhupada to do just that at his very first meeting with him in 1922. Srila Prabhupada expanded his service by developing Mayapur and preaching in India. He not only fulfilled Lord Chaitanya's prophecy, which until then had seemed an impossible order, spreading Krishna's holy names to every town and village. Prithivite ache joto nagoradi gram, sarbotra prochar hoibe mor naam. Srila Prabhupada then took up another seemingly impossible service by all material estimation of fulfilling Lord Nityananda's prophecy of manifesting the TOVP. Interestingly, in a lecture we just heard a few days back, Srila Prabhupada was making the point how it takes most brilliant minds and a ton of resources to put a Sputnik, this was 1966, in space for a limited time, yet this whole creation with the multitude of universes floating in space just happened to come about by chance. Modern civilization has misplaced their faith in the scientists who promulgate these erroneous conclusions, defying logic. This is exactly why Srila Prabhupada wanted us to present the Bhagavatam's view of creation with God as the cause of all causes, and most importantly, what is the purpose of his creation. The various exhibits in the planetarium and the sophisticated rendition of the cosmos in the giant chandelier will show how the creation came about in great detail. Unlike the human creation of spacecrafts that pollute the atmosphere from the enormous amounts of jet fuel it takes to propel the rockets, Krishna's creation is made up of oceans, of honey, ghee, fruit juices, and milk. Lord Mahavishnu lies on the causal ocean, and millions of universes effortlessly float out of the pores of his transcendental body. And what makes it even more amazing is that he accomplishes all that in his sleep. Mother Ganga, emanating from the lotus feet of the Lord, flows down from the spiritual world all the way down to the lower planets. And that is how Sanat Kumar came down to hear the Bhagavatam from Sankarshan. This is the elegance and sophistication of Krishna's creation that no one can even conceive of, what to speak of creating anything like that. As I read the Srimad Bhagavatam, I'm filled with awe and appreciation of what Srila Prabhupada has given us. His Bhaktivedanta purports are indeed his ecstasies. How else would we know about Krishna perceiving Bhishma Dev's arrows as flower showers of love bites? Only Srila Prabhupada, an intimate associate of Krishna, could have the audacity to say on one hand that Arjuna was a gross materialist in one purport in the third canto. It's in context. I cannot go into detail here for time reasons. And then glorify Arjuna's full surrender in the Bhagavad Gita, and then go on to reveal to us in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Arjuna's glorification of the gopis' intimate relationship with Krishna. So we are very fortunate to have Srila Prabhupada's eternal association in his books, his Sri Murti form to offer worship, and the beautiful temple, deities, and the invaluable Sangha of devotees in ISKCON, as well as the countless opportunities for devotional service. The TOVP was his most cherished desire, as he revealed to His Holiness Giriraj Swami in 1972. Srila Prabhupada climbed down the bamboo ladder to place Anantashesha in the foundation of this temple that very same year. He left for us to manifest the TOVP, to serve and please him by dedicating ourselves in full cooperation to present the greatest wonder to this world from his beloved ISKCON. Despite so many challenges, we are beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel by Krishna's grace, and we are praying that we are able to open Lord Nrsimhadev's temple next year and the main temple in the months leading up to Gaur Purnima in 2025. It will be a massive operation to move their lordships, as we know from the installation of Shri Shri Panchatattva. We feel immensely blessed to take part in the Mahayagya of presenting the TOVP, and wish for every devotee to not miss this once-in-a-lifetime golden opportunity of taking up Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur on his generous offer to personally take every soul back home, back to Godhead, who helps fulfill this grand vision for the ultimate peace, prosperity, and happiness of this universe for the next 10,000 years. Jai Srila Prabhupada, TOVP ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Prabhupada is going to speak, followed by Narataki Gopal via Zoom.
Hare Krishna. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram. Okay, so I was in Mayapur in 77, then I got a telegram from Tamal Krishna, TKG, who, now that I think about it, is kind of far out. I had a ticket on a plane to go to Delhi, but I didn't know when I was going to use it. But so he telegrammed, said, we need this guy Pushkar to work on some fifth canto drawings. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm going there. That was like in April or May of 77. So the whole time from April or May till the end, I was there. And it was a very somber time. It wasn't so somber in the very beginning, but gradually it got more dramatic until the day before Prabhupada left, I was wanted by the police, so I had to leave Vrindavan and go to Delhi. Because CID or whatever they're called, I tried to bribe them, but it seemed like it didn't work that well. So it said, Pushkar, don't go to the temple, they're trying to get you. So I left, and I went to Kathmandu, tried to get a visa, which I never got. And so I was deputed to, I went to get the money to fly. So I went to this, Gopal Krishna wasn't a Swami, he came up the stairs at the American Express and he said, Prabhupada is leaving in 6 hours. And I'm like, well, we thought Prabhupada would stay for 10 more years. Even up to the last minute, we thought, Aho Jiva Tasya Me, there's one shloka in the first canto that it is the great hope of the living entity always wants to live. So similarly, we want Prabhupada to live. So I remember going, when I went to give the bride in Mathura, it was near the big gate they had there, and the bus station is nearby. So I was going from there, and I get a little tap on my back, and I turn around, and it's Krishnadas Babaji, Prabhupada's godbrother. He was tapping me, and he had an umbrella for the sun. And of course, Krishnadas Babaji was, if you get a tap on your back from Krishnadas Babaji, it's pretty auspicious anyway. And I turned around, and he said, "How was your Prabhupada?" And this was like only a few days before. "How was your Prabhupada?" And I said, "Well, this morning the Kabir said he would improve." And he said, "Krishna's mercy, Krishna's mercy." So he was also hopeful. And he did this like a little dance, he was a transcendental person. So we always had that hope. Although, not long before Prabhupada left, I was standing up in the guest house. Krishna Balaram the restaurant used to look out right above the entranceway, and on the left was Prabhupada's quarters. You're looking down from the second floor. So I was standing with Yashodananda, and two rickshaw came, flatbed rickshaws with big sacks, gunny sacks. And I said to Yashodananda, and I said, what are the sacks? He said, "Oh, that's salt for the samadhi." And this is already like 10 days before Prabhupada left or something, sometime. So I felt like my heart went like this, but still, even after all, I was thinking Prabhupada will stay. We were always thinking like that. But so, Raghunath Das Goswami is saying in the Vilapa Kusamanjali that Navi Navi Pralambena Sambhoga Pushtim Ashnate, which is, of course, this is taken at so many levels, feeling separation in the Manjaris and Krishna. It's a very intimate book, but this verse says that sambhoga, or meeting, is nourished by separation. So we can relish that when we sing the songs, and like we sang Jayanilo Premadana, it nourishes, even though we're feeling great separation, but it nourishes our attachment at all times. If one doesn't have attachment, then who knows if he's getting separation also. They don't feel separation. If you're not attached, we heard that point made before. When Ramananda Roy was speaking with Mahaprabhu, so many things coming back and forth, and he said, "What is the greatest misery?" This is Mahaprabhu himself asking Ramananda Roy. And so he said, "Krishna Bhakta Varahavina Nahi Duk Guru Tara." I can't think of any other worse pain, suffering, than separation of the pure devotee, Krishna Bhakta. A real Krishna Bhakta. They have not seen a Vaishnava. There's one morning walk, well, there's many, but there's one particular one I'm thinking of, where we may know that in 1973, there was a great Rath Yatra in London. Prabhupada walked and danced, and the police were like totally buzzed out, insane. They kept telling Srila Kirti, "You tell him stop." They knew it was Prabhupada's fault. Somehow they wanted everyone, I don't know what the cops were thinking, but nobody should dance, nobody should whatever, I don't know. But somehow they didn't want us to do it in 74. 73, you guys were too crazy. And Prabhupada danced the whole way. So in 74, they didn't want us to do it. So when it came to Prabhupada's attention, they weren't going to let us do it. So on the morning walk in LA, he was chiding, we could say chiding, admonishing, or you could say really giving the sauce to a few GBCs. And he was saying, then you used to be war protesters before. Now you're not going to let them push us around, are you? It was really, Prabhupada knew which buttons to push to get people to do things. So you were such big protesters, and now they're telling you you can't have Rath Yatra? No, you take the cart to Trafalgar Square anyway. It doesn't matter what the police say. What is this Commonwealth? So they're discriminating against the Hindus. You tell them they're discriminating against our religion. You tell them. So many things, points Prabhupada was bringing. He said, otherwise you'll simply smoke ganja. You'll sell all the temples and smoke ganja. He said like that. You say you're big GBCs. And he said, they think that we'll just sit while they tell us that? No, they have not seen a Vaishnava, Prabhupada said. They have not seen. But when you think Vaishnava, then the Vaishnava Thakur, not everybody, just maybe Prabhupada, and then the list gets small. And he was talking about two great wars, Prabhupada said. The Ramayana, the hero is Vishnu, is Ram himself. And Mahabharata, Arjuna, Pandavas, that is a Vaishnava standard, he said. They have not seen a Vaishnava. So Prabhupada had a high standard. He was trying to bring people up to the standard. Still, he's trying. Such great power. So I could say some pastimes. I think Achyutananda was there, if he remembers. One time there was this barrister, advocate fellow in Calcutta, and he hadn't become a member yet. And somehow or other, one morning, everyone, all the leaders except for Brahmananda was gone. And so this advocate, he sent 2 cars to pick us up. I say us, I was lucky to get in the second car, but Prabhupada was in one car, and he lived somewhere across, I'm not so expert in Calcutta, but it took about a half hour at least to get. So Shrutakirti was in the car, and there was, the man himself didn't come. He sent his like 10, 12-year-old son, or 10 years, 11 years, I don't know. And so there was a second car, and there was a lot of kirtan guys there. At those days, Dinanath, maybe Chutananda wasn't there, but Dinanath was there, and Vishnu Dutt, and Riksaraj, and probably Dear Krishna. And they knew how to do, because I remember Dinanath led the thing. So when we got there to this guy's house, he had like a 3-story house. Of course, it's narrow, but you know, he was a lawyer. And the sun blew a conch shell. And immediately we were going upstairs to the top floor, probably the top floor. I think it was the top floor. And this man's father was dying, right? And the room, and the man is in the bed, and Prabhupada's sitting, he's talking in Bengali, and there's a picture of Ramakrishna on the wall. Always, most Calcutta, most Hindus, I don't know how the percentage, but a large percentage, they have great respect for Ramakrishna. Just the other day I had a big something with some Bengali here. And still, you know, Ramakrishna, Mahatma Ji, and so on. You have to be very careful. Prabhupada was not so careful, no. The old man was, when they were speaking back and forth, it turned out that man was the same age as Prabhupada. And so Prabhupada did 2 or 3 sentences, yes, pleasantries. And then he said, he indicated the picture, and he said, Yatoma Tatopad, and you heard him say, this is bogus, you know. They keep that picture their whole life, many generations, and Prabhupada immediately, bogus. No compromise. But, you know, not everybody can, we're discussing this somewhere online maybe yesterday. You can't get away with that, you know. You don't try this at home. Prabhupada would say something like, when he went to the embassy to try to legalize all the American devotees, I think Kirti Raj was there, definitely. Shrutakirti, only they were there maybe. We heard about it. And he was speaking very heavily to these Indian ambassador, people in the place in Manhattan. So afterwards, they didn't exactly know, but he sounded really heavy. They said, Prabhupada, you were really heavy with them. Yeah, but they don't take it seriously. I'm an old man. What does that mean? They don't take it seriously. They don't get angry, really, because Prabhupada, authoritative, he has the Shakti, Adhikar. So he said, but you cannot do this. He said, you cannot do that. Taking seriously means they'll throw you out, but they're not about to do that to Prabhupada. Prabhupada could get up in a big crowd and I'll say the same thing. So some of our godbrothers have tried that in big crowds. It used to be almost a riot. You know, you could cause a riot. The entire Calcutta would be destroyed if you did try that too much. I remember I was frightened. I heard some devotees speaking very heavy about this to some followers, you know, but not recommended. Prabhupada had the Shakti to do that. Just like when the Naxalites came in Calcutta, they have so many problems, who knows. But they didn't like the idea that they were charging a couple of rupees to sit on a seat. Otherwise, everyone was sitting on the floor or something. And they put a note that fly or die. Prabhupada was not unflinching. He said, just tell them they can have the seats free. And then like that. Other times, like in the West, we never know what Prabhupada's going to do. In France, there's a lot of, you know, they cut off kings' heads there. They don't like authorities that much. So they were saying, Patel, you know, sit down. I think Aditi's here. Were you at that program? Anyway, they were saying, sit on the ground. Why don't you sit on the ground? In French. And Prabhupada said, what are they saying? They said, you should sit on, don't sit on a big chair. So next time, Prabhupada said, next time I won't sit on Vyasasan in public, you know, just to satisfy them. Other times, Prabhupada was unflapped in the face of the Naxalites, and they're, you know, they're very violent people. Well, according to time and place, he's the Senapati Bhakta. I will send, in the Chaitanya Mangal, there's a statement, I will send my Senapati Bhakta. Even if the Indians are flying out of the Bharatvarsha and going all over the world, he'll bring them back. So nobody can claim they did that. And Prabhupada said, he used to quote to the Indians, Bharat Bhumi Te Hola Manusha Janmanja. Any Indians group in Canada, South Africa, wherever they were, certain things he would quote, and that was for sure quoting. Bharat Bhumi Te Hola. Maybe they weren't born in India, but they're in the heritage of Indian heritage. But he said, at least one Indian has come. Very humbly. How many times Prabhupada said, I am given credit, but I have no special credit. If I have any credit, is that I'm transparent. I'm just presenting the philosophy. So it sounds very humble, and it also doesn't sound like a big high bar, but it is. Because sarva upadi vinir muktam. We're full of upadi. We're putting something in front. Prabhupada was transparent. So therefore, people say, oh, it's just like Krishna speaking. He's looking through me. Because Prabhupada's transparent. He's not bringing any upadi in front. He's not interfering. The transference is perfect. So everyone was attracted. Why they're attracted? Because I have no sex desire. No sex desire is like, well, so many sadhus. No, not so many sadhus. We probably had no material desire. Therefore, people are attracted. He's selfless. They used to say, oh, Prabhupada is exploiting all these young people, this big old Indian Swami, big, not big, but this old, and they're working free. No, he was working 10 times more than anybody, 100 times. Without any effort, I mean apparent effort, just very relaxed, drinking like this, something with this. Very relaxed the whole time, no anxiety, no fear. Another definition, Prabhupada. So what is this liberation? Liberation from fear. Prabhupada was the personification. Dui Bhagavate, right? Two types of Bhagavat. Ashray, the person Bhagavat, the person who takes shelter of the Bhagavatam, and the Bhagavatam itself. Bhagavat Shastra and Bhagavat Patra, those who receives the Bhagavatam. So with every walk, every movement, akshnopalam tadasha darshanam hi, perfection of the eyes to see someone like Prabhupada. Tadasha kirtanam hi, the perfection of talking is to glorify someone like Prabhupada. And sudurlabha bhagavata hi loke, very difficult to find someone like that. So it's very difficult to find. So now that we have Prabhupada, we can simply follow his orders. Haribol, Jai.
Sadhu, sadhu. So, Naratakti Gopal is going to speak to us via Zoom, and then Divya Prabhu is going to speak. We are ready for you, Narataki Gopal. We're ready for you, but we don't hear you. Yeah, turned it off.
Omagana, Timirandasha, Ganagana, Shalakaya, Chaksur Unmilitam Jaina, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So today is the most holy 45th anniversary, or the 45th year of Srila Prabhupada's passing. They call it the disappearance anniversary, but the word disappear, actually, what disappeared? Maybe Srila Prabhupada's external form, his Vapu, disappeared, but what that means is that his Vani, his internal form of all of his blessings, or the transcendental nature of his instructions, just became more magnified. Just as when Srila Prabhupada was asked, how many times have you seen your spiritual master, Prabhupada? Prabhupada said that since the day that I met my Guru Maharaj, he has never left me, not even for a moment. So we should learn from this, or we can learn from this, and anytime that we are listening to Srila Prabhupada's lecture, reading any of his books, following any of his instructions, even thinking of him, this is his Vani, and it's an internal blessing that everybody has, not just Srila Prabhupada's direct disciples, like the few of us here who the number seems to be dwindling a little every year, but anybody. So anybody has access to Srila Prabhupada's Vani form, which should be in our heart at all times. And he is there as long as we are willing to connect with him and stay with him. Sukada had mentioned a few things about the wonderful transcendental, our first trip to India in '76. And I wanted to say, she got as far as when we were with Prabhupada in, Calcutta, so I wanted to mention a couple other things that we were with Prabhupada then in Delhi. There was a Pandal program. We would be distributing books while Prabhupada spoke, and they would show the Hare Krishna people movie, and there were thousands and thousands of people there for 5 nights. And then they said that whoever has distributed books here gets to go on traveling Sankirtan with Prabhupada for a few days. So we were so fortunate and blessed that we got to go on traveling Sankirtan. There was a bus of devotees, approximately 20 to 22 devotees were on the bus, and Prabhupada drove in front of us in his vehicle, and we went to the towns in between Delhi and Agra, such as we went to Modi Nagar, and Prabhupada got out. The whole town band was there, a big brass band, with tubas and everything, playing Hare Krishna, and Prabhupada was conducting. And and we went to the next day or so, we went to Aligarh, another town, and at each town we had big pandal programs again, showed the movie, Prabhupada spoke, so it was wonderful. And when we got to Vrindavan, then there was as Devi Shakti calls it, I think the biggest yagya they ever had in Vrindavan. We had a huge yagya, and I was able to get my second initiation there. And we had to wait, usually you get your Gayatri mantra the same day as you have your yagya, but we had to wait 5 days for Prabhupada to have the time to give us the Gayatri mantra. And I mean, our group, we had broken into little groups. So, so on the 5th day, finally we was able to get it. There were 5 ladies going in, and after Prabhupada showed us how to do our hands and how to chant, gave us the Gayatri mantra, then everybody left, but I had brought a gift for Prabhupada, so I gave him my gift and said, Prabhupada, I made this for you. I had made him some shoes, the kind of shoes that have a peg, wooden shoes, and the peg was shaped like a lotus flower, had a jewel in it. I gold leafed the peg and the exterior part of the shoe, and carved these out of wood and made a velvet bag with Srila Prabhupada's name embroidered on it to keep them in, and so gave to him, and Srila Prabhupada, I made these for you. So he looked at them and thank you very much. And next day, because us ladies would clean his quarters, so that was my room to clean, which is in Prabhupada's quarters in Vrindavan, his main room where he left for the spiritual world from. And there's a mantelpiece there. And so the next day I found the shoes that I'd given him up on the mantelpiece. And somehow when we cleaned, we would go in on Prabhupada's morning walk, generally between 6 and 7 a.m. was his morning walk. So we would go in there every day, a crew of us, 8 or 10 ladies, and we each had our own. One lady cleaned the bathroom, one the kitchen, one the bedroom, one the other rooms, and one the upstairs. And I would clean that big main room, Prabhupada's main room there. So somehow, I don't know how, but every day I found Prabhupada's garland from the previous day there. So of course, we got to, if you're cleaning the room, you have to keep his garland, So, so after a few days, every single day I had it. So I mean, I just started to, wear it for a little while and then give it to a different God sister every day and tell them this is Prabhupada's direct garland, whatever you want to do with it, So it was very causeless mercy. So, and then the last thing I'll say is that we were stuck in Radhakund. When the big parakram, there were several buses of men ahead of us, and they didn't wait for the ladies. So what happened was when the ladies were trying to leave, we had 2 buses, and one of them broke down. So all of us ladies got together and said, okay, so whoever has children, or if you have a seva to do, go on the good bus, and the rest of us will wait here until something happens, until it gets fixed, So we had to wait there quite a while, and somehow then we heard later that when everybody was back at the temple, then somebody apparently mentioned, did the ladies' bus ever get fixed? And Prabhupada said, what? Where are the ladies? And somebody said, well, Prabhupada, we think that we heard one of the buses, didn't make it back. And Prabhupada said, what? He said, you go immediately to the police chief in Vrindavan and tell him that he has to find the ladies for us. So he was very concerned that the men were just going to, leave it until who knows when, let it resolve itself. But Prabhupada was very concerned, and we were very touched. He said, "These are my daughters, and you have to find them," you know. So we were very touched. So finally we made it back. So we'd just like to pray to Prabhupada to thank you so much for giving us your divine Vani that anybody can tap into 24 hours a day. We don't need even an email or a phone number. You're available to us with your love, mercy, blessings, kindness, instructions, and beg to remain your humble servant forever. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Anantaki Gopal. Hare Krishna. So, Divyana Prabhu, and followed by Vegavati. We have another hour and a half, and we only have 2 more speakers. Oh, Asamita. On Zoom.
Haribol Prabhus. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sarva Vaishnavara Pai Kori Namaskar. Ite Aparada Kichu Na Hokama. I was reflecting last night on the old days. You probably remember when we used to pay obeisances to each other and be nice to each other and respect each other. Remember that? I remember that. So I was thinking, wouldn't that be nice? You know, it's the golden Kali Yuga. Lord Chaitanya is delivering the entire universe. Pretty much you'd have to just be a really offensive rascal to not get in on the mercy, because Swayam Bhagavan Sri Krishna has come as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he's deputed Nityananda and Haridas to distribute love of God. And there's no qualification. The example is Jagai and Madai. Guys like me, what am I doing here? Somehow or other, Prabhupada has allowed me to stay in his Sankirtan party for my entire adult life. And I'm grateful, and I feel totally unqualified, but I'm not leaving. And what I do in my service is distribute his books. And I find if I don't practice sadhana, that my service is really difficult, because purity is the force, and it's not an easy thing to get. In most jobs, if you please your superior, your bosses, you can make advancement in your career. Now, the way to make advancement in my job is to become cleansed in my heart. And you can tell from looking at me that I don't have a very clean heart. But I'm not going to give it up, because Prabhupada ordered us, and he said, do this, and we all promised to do it, to chant our japa, and to follow the regulative principles, and to try to help others. And I find that when I put myself out there, because there's days when I go out on Sankirtan, when I really don't want to, for many reasons, mental or physical or whatever, but I say, I'm doing this. I don't care what my mind says, I don't care what my body says. And I go out on Sankirtan, and then Krishna blesses me. I meet jivas that like getting books. And I mean, there's a million examples of it, but like I like to go when I buy gas. I don't like to go into the store, but I go in anyway because there's jivas in there, and they need books. So I go in there, and I always take books in with me. So I go in, pay for the gas, and I pulled out a book. It happened to be Chant and Be Happy, with the Beatles and Prabhupada on the cover, and I hand it to the man, and the man looks at it and goes, I don't want this. So he gives me back the book, and this old, decrepit-looking man standing next to me, I mean, he just looked so covered over. As I took that book back, he reached out, grabs the book, and he says, Prabhupada. Shocked me, because we just see the body. I saw this guy standing there like some, curmudgeon. He didn't look even conscious at all. But when he saw Prabhupada, he lit up and he said, Prabhupada. The guy behind the counters looked at him like, you guys know each other? And I said, do you know Prabhupada? And the man didn't want to talk to me. I mean, for whatever reason, he kept the book. And I was like, give me something. I want to know, how do you know Prabhupada? And he just kind of went, and he took the book and he walked away. But that's an example of how it is. There's 7 billion people out there. And most of them aren't devotees, if you haven't noticed. Most of them are really busy. Just eat, sleep, mate, defend, the normal things that people do. And then in the middle of their day, wherever it may be, all of a sudden out of nowhere comes some guy and goes, here, and hands them Krishna and Prabhupada. And the next thing you know, Prabhupada said, their life can be turned if they just read one word of the book. He said, even if they just touch the book, their life can be turned. And I have many examples of it in my life, of devotees that got books and then they became Vaishnavas. Their lives were turned completely the opposite of what they were doing. So we all love Prabhupada, we all love Krishna, and we all want to go back to Godhead. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this. But when the heart is plagued with conflicting desires, it creates friction. And so if you don't push back through sadhana, especially through hearing, and once you finish your japa, or whatever you do in the morning, whatever your sadhana is, you have to hear constantly. I mean, at least I do. If I hear constantly, then I have a chance to act the way Prabhupada wanted us to act, and he wanted us to be civilized human beings. Civilized means that you follow those principles. And it's easy to say, but I don't know about you, but I find it difficult. I've always found it difficult to be civilized, just because nature, nature drags us in so many directions. So by sadhana and by constantly hearing, when I drive out in Sankirtan, I'm listening to Prabhupada speak, because it's the only shelter. Once you get out there, then you're out there with them, the other jivas, the Buddha jivas, the Sanmohita jivas that are lost, and you're the guy that's got to help them. And when you get out there, it's not always like, oh, thanks for coming out here. I really appreciate this book. You've helped me. It's not always like that. And sometimes it's like that, but usually it's not like that at all. But it gives me hope, because I do this every day. I don't have to do this, but I do have to do it. So I take shelter in Srila Prabhupada, and I'm always surprised that he's so kind. He's so merciful to let a guy like me stay on his party for all these years. And he supplies me with books to distribute, and I have good association. I have every opportunity to be a good devotee. Yet, still, I struggle to try to be a good devotee. But that struggle, that's devotional service. That's bhakti. And if we give up that struggle, then we're lost. Then we, bloop. And I remember when I heard Prabhupada left, I had blooped a few weeks before that. And a couple of my devotee friends and I were out there, and we got a phone call that Prabhupada left. They called us the day Prabhupada left, and I mean, it really hit us. Even though we were in Maya and we had blooped, it really hit us hard, and it made me want to come back to my japa and my reading that I had given up. And through association of a few devotees, I got that mercy, and I got back into my sadhana and my service. And I must say, even when I was blooped, I was still distributing books. I have this thing that I have to do it. I can't just let somebody walk by me, and if I don't have a book or a card or something, I'll say, Nitai. Or I'll pick up my phone and say, Nitai? Where's Nitai? You get in an elevator, we spent a lot of time in the hospital because my daughter has a disease. And you get in the elevator and there's 10 people in, and you go, hey, Nitai. Nitai, where's Krishna? We're going on Sankirtan. And I look around and people are hearing these things. They may know or not, but their jiva, the soul inside there, is hearing them. So I'm this missionary creature, you know. I just can't stand to watch somebody just walk by and go to hell. And when I'm out there talking to people, all they're doing is they come out with these big carts full of, you know, full of sin. You know, they got meat and alcohol and everything you can imagine that's taking them to hell. And I'm thinking, this is the last stop right here. If this guy doesn't get a book from me, he's going to hell. So you have to try to stop him, which is not always easy. And I remember when I was a kid, my friend Doug Bauer was a big German guy. And he's like, come on, you're on our team, we're playing football. Now I learned real quick that football was just not my game. They put me on the line and they go, don't let this dude come in. Hut. This guy just flattened me, you know? So they think, hey, McCready, get up, what are you doing? You're supposed to stop that guy. So I got up again and I tried. After a couple of times, I said, yeah, I'm not a football player, you know? I played tennis or something. But the point I'm trying to make is that if you take shelter, and we have Prabhupada's mercy given to us, he spoon-fed it to us, all we have to do is participate in it and try to be not offensive. If we can be nice, respectful, and try to engage in service all the time, because tat karma pravartana, Rupa Goswami says, engage in some practical service. You have to be enthusiastic, you have to be patient, and you have to be confident. But then you have to tat karma, you have to get involved in some service. Unfortunately for me, my service has been book distribution my whole life, and like I said before, if you're not a little Krishna conscious, it's pretty hard to do Sankirtan, at least for any length of time. So I renew my vows every morning, and I pray to Prabhupada to let me engage in my service. And I really believe that I know that it's possible because I have God brothers that are in Krishna consciousness. The whole point of this is to become Krishna conscious. And I have a whole bunch of God brothers that have been practicing nicely their whole sojourn, and they're spiritual, blissful people. So we have all kinds of reasons to do this. And if we just take shelter of Prabhupada and try not to be offensive, the doors are open because it's the golden Kali Yuga. And Prabhupada says, what's the verse? Krishnara lagiya yeva nitya yuda kori, riddhi siddhi jnanatara mustira bitore. Whoever daily fights the battle of life only for Lord Krishna's sake discovers prosperity, mystic perfection, and transcendental knowledge in the palm of his hand. Now, that sounds pretty good to me. He says, this is the message of the Bhagavad Gita. And he wrote that slow. So that's the message. Just fight the daily life, the daily battle of life, only for Lord Krishna. And then you get all the mercy. Thank you so much, Prabhus, for your association. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for everything you do for us. Hare Krishna.
Divyanga, thank you. You always inspire us. So Vegavati followed by Trivikram. And I have a story for you, Divyanga, if you can hear. Similar story. Yeah, so, I have a story for you. When we were younger and we do Sankirtan, by the end of the day we were a little intoxicated and uninhibited. So, like Divyanga was saying, we want to bless everybody. So we'd stop at a red light, and we'd call somebody over and say, do you know where Gauranga Avenue is? And so we call this guy over and he goes like this. This is a true story. He goes, Gauranga?
Krishna. Oh.
You can try that if you like.
Oh,
it's fun. It's fun. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So I actually wasn't planning on speaking. I had gone home, but I was listening to the homages, the appreciations, and when Mukhya said, we like to remember where we were when we heard that Prabhupada left, and I thought that's one thing I've never shared, because when I first joined, I had moved into the temple in Hawaii, which was 95% Siddha Swarup's people, and later that whole group left ISKCON. but I stayed where I was, so that's my beginning, first 3 years, I think. Then I went to LA, got initiated, and then a few months before I heard that, we knew Prabhupada was going to leave, and I was afraid there will be fighting, because I had my conditioning from... So I had gone back to Hawaii, so that's where I was when I heard. And so it just so happened there was kirtan, and Siddhasarup Prabhu, or Maharaj, I guess at the time, was leading the kirtan, and it became so ecstatic, and I had not heard, but it was this amazing kirtan, and everybody was just singing with so much love, and then he paused the kirtan and he said, "O grave, where is thy victory? O death, where is thy sting?" Which was a quote from some poet, I don't know who, but he had heard, and that's why the kirtan had reached that crescendo. And then, of course, I came to know that's when they had heard that Srila Prabhupada had left. Just the other day, I get in my email daily little quotes from Prabhupada, and then nowadays there's first a quote, and then there's a 1 minute or less video of somebody remembering Srila Prabhupada, and then there's another anecdote. So just a couple days ago, this 50-second video was of a person recalling a conversation. It was some godbrother had complained to Srila Prabhupada about Siddhasarupa and his followers, and they were not part of ISKCON anymore. And I had to piece it together afterwards because it was very quick. But someone was complaining to Srila Prabhupada, but they're reading your books and they're chanting Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada chastised the complaining devotee. And he said, basically the essence of it was, he said that's an aparad for you to criticize like that. He said, there are and there will be many branches of the Chaitanya tree. ISKCON is not the only branch, and we should be, maintain good relations. So when I remembered the one thing and then I thought of the other, I thought this is important instruction from Srila Prabhupada. And then someone else, and now I can't remember who, was telling, about Prabhupada thanking devotees for caring for their god brothers and god sisters. So to continue in this same vein, so now one of the people in our greater Alachua community is Gaurasundar Prabhu, who was one of the very first devotees to join in San Francisco. He and Govindadasi served as Prabhupada's servant and secretary for quite some time, and then Prabhupada sent Gaurasundar to Hawaii to open the first temple there. So that's who Siddhasarup heard about Krishna from. And then he already had his own followers. They then moved into the temple, and that's why when I moved in, all these people were part of ISKCON. And later they left. But apparently, I guess it's been about 5 years now that Gaurasundar Prabhu has Parkinson's disease. So Siddhasarup recently, like within the last 5 years, had a dream where Srila Prabhupada came to him and he told him, "You take care of Gaurasundar." So he has followers, they have money, and they're regularly paying for some devotee to come and give him physical therapy and so many facilities actually. And so this is just an example of the greater family that we are. So I'm getting inspired by other people's offerings, and Mahatma Prabhu, you just reminded me. When I was part of the Baltimore temple, this was in the 80s, we were out traveling and selling things to send the money back for the temple. And so at one point I was in the car with a god sister, and I don't remember what it was that we had become angry about, but we weren't talking to each other, but we were both in the same car. And I was driving, she was sitting over here, and she was saying Gayatri. And a car pulled up next to me, and there was a dog in the passenger seat. And we had some cookies or pakoras or something. I don't know what it was, but I took it and I threw it, and the dog caught it in its mouth. Caught this prasadam in its mouth, and she had seen it. We both started laughing so hard it completely eradicated whatever argument had been there, and we were just, fellow devotees trying to spread Prabhupada's mission. So I just wanted to share those things. Oh, and I'm also very, very grateful to modern technology because the last couple of days, and again today, Karnapur Prabhu is helping me fix my laptop so that when I'm in India next week, I can still do my service for the TOVP. So, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Next is Trivikram and then Aditi. Mother Bhagavati, it's a similar story, the way you told about Gaurasunda. It just means that someone does some service to Prabhupada that he never forgets. And we may not like that person because they did things we don't like. This happened with a sannyasi. I think it was with Bali Mardan, particularly when he came back, and Prabhupada was willing to engage him. And he said, Prabhupada, you'll engage me, you won't reject me. He said, no, you've done so much service, how can I forget you? So Prabhupada didn't hold grudges, and he just saw the service, and he appreciated it. So be careful about who you offend, because you may offend someone that Prabhupada loves. And then one other story about two people in a car. Two devotees were in a car, they were doing traveling Sankirtan, and they're kind of like didn't talk to one another type thing, because one was in charge and the other one didn't like that the other one was in charge. You know how that works. So what happened was one devotee got dropped off, and in the evening, when it came time to get picked up, he left, and they don't have cell phones, so they couldn't find one another, and they were like North Dakota. They were devotees from LA, so they're like in the middle of the middle of the middle of nowhere. And they both freaked out because they didn't want to be alone in that city. And they thought, if we don't meet, we're going to be alone in this city, and who knows what's going to happen to us. So they were so happy when they finally met up again. Such a beautiful story.
Hare Krishna, everybody. So I was around 13, 14 years old, and I was searching for the meaning of life. Imagine somebody 13, 14 years old searching for the meaning of life. But I guess the fundamental reason for that was my mom had died when I was about 9 years. So life was never the same again. Even though I'm going through the phases of life, but I'm always contemplating that. And so I read the Mahabharata. I read literatures from the Buddhist faith, the Bible, different, I've been searching. And then eventually I got a BTG, I think, from some devotee. And I read that, and I was really amazed, really. And gradually I would go out and preach. 14 years old, I would meet my friends and talk to them about the philosophy. Because, like I said, I even had read the philosophy of Bruce Lee, Jeet Kune Do. And so, but when I read Srila Prabhupada writing, I was really amazed. And so I would go out and preach at that age, especially to my friends, tell them about the soul and, about the Lord and so forth. And time passed, and I started work with the government of Guyana, and I got a little carried away, influenced by women and whatever. And then in 82, I moved into the temple. And then I heard Srila Prabhupada left the planet. I didn't know, and it was it was like not the same again, because when I was reading Srila Prabhupada books, within my heart there was so much attraction. I don't know where it was coming from, but somehow there was so much attraction, you know. And when I heard, I was a little disappointed, you know, then in 82. But anyhow, I got initiated and so forth, and life went on, and I was preaching, and so we're still preaching now, and so we're trying to take this preaching to a higher level. And Srila Prabhupada said that your love for me would be proved by how much you cooperate with one another and try to push this movement, you know. So I think this is our objective and this is our goal. I realize that as a preacher we have to know sometimes our obstacles. And I think that the scientific department is one of our greatest challenges, really, because they're able to influence the world so much. More than 90% of the world are being influenced by the scientists. And so as a preacher, we have to be able to counter their theories, especially all the theories and origins. I find that they're atheistic in nature, and so if we can counter those theories, we can able to weaken the scientists, especially in these fields. Just like when Yudhishthira went to Salya, and he said, I want you to weaken the Suta son. Why the Suta son? Because Karna was the biggest challenge in that war, because Bhishma had sentiments for Arjuna, Drona had sentiments for Arjuna, but not Karna. You see, Yudhishthira knew that. Yudhishthira knew that only Karna would kill Arjuna. See? So he told, Yudhishthira told Salya, weaken the Suta son. So when Salya was driving that chariot, he would tell things to upset Karna and to tell him, he said, you're not that powerful, Arjuna is more powerful than you. And he would tell him a lot of things, and that would get Karna angry and so forth. But the idea is, coming back to the point, the origin theories in science, right, is what's opposing us, especially the theory of evolution, the Big Bang theory, and the theories of the origin of life, abiogenesis and ocean vent theories and so forth. So if we can counter them, we may not be able to falsify these theories in our lifetime. If we can falsify them, we're great, but that might be a challenge, but at least if we can weaken them. So there was a question I answered online, and I'd like to read it to you guys. If evolution is real, why humans stopped evolving from monkeys millions of years ago? So here's my answer. The genetic and other biological changes that are observed in all species are mistaken for evolution. These changes are not meant to produce new species, but to decrease the sizes of all creatures through the evolving ages. The fossil records, with the exception of humans, support this puzzling mystery. By the end of this dreadful age, all creatures would become unrecognizably small. Men will be like midgets. Cows will have the size of goats. Trees will be like plants. This is considered controlled destiny, not a chance bogus evolutionary theory. Because most of the top scientists are atheistic in nature, the paleontologists, archaeologists, anthropologists, cosmologists, astrophysicists, microbiologists. Because they are atheistic in nature, they would love to prove to the world that all life, all creation, all the galaxies originated by chance. And I think this is wishful thinking that cannot be proven. So, our job is to preach and spread this mission of Srila Prabhupada. And if everyone can cooperate, that would be so great. We're trying to also spread the Harinam in the different cities around, and so the most people that can join us, better for us. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
So now Mother Aditi, followed by Sranga Thakur is not here. Oh yeah, followed by Sranga Thakur, and then Rasamrita. And then Ruchira, and then there's nobody else, unless someone wants to go again. He already went.
Vanchakalpatarubhascha kripasindhubhaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarini. So all glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to his divine master Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur. And I think Prabhupada will go down in history as that next Acharya who spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And like you said, Prabhu, we should embrace all of the devotees, whatever group they're in, they are loving and serving Krishna. So I think that is the way this movement can move forward. This day is like the most momentous day every year for me because it shapes me, it makes me remember. I was in Western France and my husband had gone to call in our scores. We didn't have a phone at the farm, we didn't have cell phones, and I had gone to a nursery to buy a yellow rose plant, thinking I would plant it at our farm, and one day Prabhupada would come and see the yellow rose. And when my husband came back and told me the news, I was devastated. In fact, we had been doing these huge Sankirtan marathons, I think like a month before, maybe Dante Casey, you remember, I remember being in a parking lot in Le Mans, and I had my green bag with heavy books, and my bead bag with my beads that Prabhupada had chanted on. And I was so involved in doing things, when I turned around, the whole thing was gone. And I was heartbroken, and I had to think about why that happened. And the conclusion I came to was there was another devotee who was out there with me, and she was she was taking care of the books, taking care of publishing the books, and she wasn't used to Sankirtan, and she was having a really hard time. And I think Prabhupada did that to me to make me understand even more important than distributing that book was taking care of the devotee who was having a hard time out there. And I remember later on, somewhere I heard in France that somebody had gotten a book, they were fishing, and they pulled out a Krishna book. And I don't know whether if I would have been there, I'm sure I would have said, well, where was that? Because I want to go back, my beads must be there. Maybe that was that bag. And those had been my second beads, the first one by mail. I had lost somehow. But when Prabhupada came for the first time for me in London in 1971, he chanted for two of us, Dan and Jaya and myself, because I had lost those first beads. And so Prabhupada had them around his neck, and the servant said Prabhupada was rocking in his rocking chair and chanting on the beads. So I still long to find those beads, but whatever beads I have, I give to Prabhupada, asking him to chant on them. But to understand Prabhupada's position, I mean, to look at the long view, I think Prabhupada will go down in history as bringing Krishna consciousness to the rest of the world. And as it goes on, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's really incredible. And thinking how Prabhupada started, how simple our temples were in the beginning. I remember when I joined in London, and I guess it was spring of 1970, I was leaving California, and I was in an airplane with a one-way ticket, and there was a big moon outside the window. And I just felt, I'm just giving myself now to whatever God wants, because I couldn't make sense of things on my own. And I had tried to go to the temple in San Francisco, and I had seen the devotees chanting on the streets of Berkeley, and I would always cross the other side because I didn't want a confrontation. And then one time a girl got me, and so I said, well, I don't have much money, and I gave something, and I forget what she said. It was something like, I can't remember now. It was something that made me later on think back. That was kind of the beginning. And then in London, it was such a beautiful temple. I couldn't find the devotees in San Francisco, but there I'd see them in big events and things. But there in London, it was so beautiful. I walked into a temple with Radha London Ishwara there. Very, very beautiful. So this year, because I've turned 77, that did something to my mind. It made me realize 1977, this is getting late now. I'm getting old. And I have to thank Thakur Prabhu, because when I had my leg surgery, he came and created a disabled bathroom for me. And I will be forever grateful, Prabhu. And all the other nice things I see the devotees do here, it's very moving. But to understand Prabhupada's position, and it's so beautiful what the devotees have done, both on the altar and on Prabhupada's Vyasa-san. Once in 1976, Prabhupada was in England. I don't know if any of you were in England at that time. You were probably. And we were going crazy in Paris. We wanted Prabhupada to come. Even Bhagavan went and to speak with Prabhupada to convince him to come to Paris and to install Krishna Balaram, right, Dandakesi? That's when Krishna Balaram were installed. So Mahameda and I were fixing up Prabhupada's room, and devotees were downstairs in anxiety, some kirtan, and we came to Prabhupada's bed, and we were just, well, should we make his bed? You know, that we don't know if he's coming. And out of my mouth came, Prabhupada's bed should always be made. He is always here. And that moment, God, you couldn't believe the screams, the yells, the drums. Everybody went crazy in the temple because they had just gotten the message, Prabhupada is coming. And so that was the last time in France that Prabhupada came. I later saw him in England in 77, and that was very moving also, but I won't tell that story. But I think what that means is that actually Prabhupada is always here. That lesson is that Prabhupada is always with us, and we can always feel his presence, and we can always serve him. What was the last thing? So Prabhupada's momentum will go on, actually till the end of this Kali Yuga. At that time, Krishna himself will come and start anew. Perhaps what is it, meditation in the Golden Age? Maybe people won't be chanting like we are now, but this is for this age, and we're so fortunate to have come in contact with Prabhupada and to Lord Chaitanya's movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Srila Thakur, followed by Rasamrita, then Ruchira. A devotee asked Prabhupada, he said, do the acharyas go back to Godhead or do they stay in the world? And Prabhupada said, they stay in the world, life after life. And then the devotee said, is it something like they exist in the spiritual world and exist here? And Prabhupada said, yes, something like that. And then there's another story. These are all from the Memories videos. There's another story. A devotee asked Prabhupada's servant, he said, where's Prabhupada going to go in his next life? And his servant said, I don't know, let's ask him. And they just walked right into Prabhupada's room and asked, where are you going to go? And Prabhupada said, I want to preach on the hellish planets. So that corroborates those two stories. So sometimes you may read a Vyas Puja offering with Prabhupada, I want to take birth with you, or I want to, live near the 26th 2nd Avenue or the Haight-Ashbury of that universe you're going to be in and be one of you. Help you spread Krishna consciousness.
Along the lines of that story, and on one of the Memories videos, I heard this wonderful conversation where a disciple asked Prabhupada, will we recognize you in the spiritual world? And Prabhupada said, yes. And then he said, I will take your hand and place it in Krishna's hand and make the introductions. Yes. So here's some. Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet. How can I serve you, Srila Prabhupada? You are the master of devotion, the acharya for the age, the founder of our ISKCON mission, and the most beloved devotee of Lord Krishna. My question seems audacious when I realize your transcendental stature and my relative insignificance. Yet out of your unfathomable mercy, I am allowed to ask that question and endeavor to live the answer. As I timorously recall my struggles in Krishna consciousness, I am moved by how often you have saved me from one madness or another. I am so grateful to be able to meditate on this question of how to serve you, how to please you. This is becoming the guiding principle of my life. I envision daily improvement as I balance and work with my conditioned nature. I like to practice the presence of Krishna by seeing his hand in everything. I especially focus on japa with the holy name, the underlying basis and goal of everything we do. Hearing you speak every day inspires me to stretch out of my comfort zone and think of new ways I can serve you. I don't want to be limited by some false ego conception of myself. Surrendering to someone as glorious and qualified as you, Srila Prabhupada, is the perfection of our lives, and I look forward to being 100%. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, your humbled servant, Sangha Thakur Das. Hare Krishna.
I can't hear you, but When you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. You can begin.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhaktade Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shanyavari Paschatade Shatarini. Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my obeisances. All glories to you. Thank you for sharing your deep love with your devotees. Because of their love and attachment to you, I have had the great fortune to hear so many stories of your impact and the sweetness of the exchanges between you and your devotees, who were conquered with your kindness and your love and your care. The beautiful book called The Bond of Love, Srila Prabhupada and his daughters, is full of sweet exchanges between you and your daughter disciples. One of your senior devotee leaders said that this book is one of the most important books in your movement right now, as it highlights your personal example and impact on so many lives. Thank you for your great sacrifice to give Krishna to the world. By your grace, I got to witness my parents' simplicity and dedication to your mission and their years of service to you, and the wonderful miracles which manifest. One beautiful pastime my parents experienced with you was when you saw the film that my parents made, The Spark of Life, in your room, with many sannyasis and brahmacharis assembled to watch the film also. The film was about two students dressed in Western clothing, and the film took place on a college campus. One of the students was sharing the Bhagavad Gita's teachings on the soul and reincarnation with the other student, and they discussed and contemplated the topic of the soul. The film was a tremendous effort and creative masterpiece for that time. After the screening, there were some critical comments by the sannyasis that this film is for women and children, etc. Srila Prabhupada, you handled this situation so expertly. You heard these critical comments and you so expertly cut through them. You went to the essence. You asked my father, what is the result of showing this film? My father replied that a guest at a temple, a new guest who saw the film, said that now he understands what the soul is and what reincarnation is, and he was very grateful. Then Srila Prabhupada, you replied, then it is a success. All of these old films that my parents made are on the YouTube channel, Hare Krishna Film Classics. These films are incredible historic records about the Hare Krishna movement. This seva was very dear to you, Srila Prabhupada. You personally funded one of the first films with $16,000, which was a lot of money at that time. You had the vision of how important film will be to impact the world. By Krishna's magic and by the support of so many devotees around the world, the Hare Krishna film has had tremendous success in touching so many people with your story. Still now, 5 years after its release, regularly new people send letters about how much they are so moved when they watch the Hare Krishna film. And some share how the film sparked their deepening connection with Krishna consciousness. Once my father asked you in Los Angeles if he could film you to make a film about you, and you replied in your humility, what is the need? My father replied, future generations would like to know about you. And then you said, all right, you never wanted to be in the center. Your mercy is so sweet. Your mercy is the lifeline to take us above all the suffering around us. Your mercy has gifted us with so many sincere devotees, an ocean of mercy. Because of your mercy, so many lives are enriched with inconceivable gifts and auspiciousness. Thank you for all of your love and encouragement, your unwavering compassion, your vision, and your sacrifice. I feel your support and encouragement regularly, and I'm ever so grateful to you for the Krishna magic you have generously shared. Your aspiring servant, Rasamita Devi Dasi.
So now, Ruchira or Anagamanjara, you would like to go now? And then Ruchira, you can go after.
Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada. Jai, all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, thank you for following Prabhupada and being so dedicated. Just as Sharanga Thakur was saying, how Prabhupada said he will take us by the hand and bring us to Krishna. So I have a little story about that. Actually an experience. I had the good fortune of being in Mayapur taking care of Prabhupada's sister Pishima, and I've told this story before, but just like any pastime, I guess it is always very special, and it's very special for me. It changed my life. So I was taking care of her. I was actually, when I was on the plane going over to Mayapur, I felt like I was being driven to go to Mayapur at that time, and I arranged the whole thing myself, which was unusual. I was, I think, 23 or 24 at the most. And so I was there on the plane, and I was thinking, oh, maybe Prabhupada had already left us about a year and a half or two before. And I was thinking, oh, it would be nice if I met Prabhupada's sister. I wonder if she's there. I was just casually thinking that. And while I was thinking that, something deep inside said, you're only going to Mayapur to take care of Pishima, and then you're coming back. And I was like, whoa, I wasn't planning that, but let's see, because that deep and soft voice that sometimes is felt inside us, I was thinking, it could be Super Soul, but it could just be my mind. So anyway, I got to Mayapur, Pishima was there. And so I would visit her often, and I'd play mridanga and sing to her, sing with her, and she would play kartals and we would sing. And I used to try to make her laugh a lot. At one point, she kept saying that she wanted to come to America to preach. She wanted to be part of the mission, you know. And she was so appreciative of all the devotees all the time, how dedicated they were. Sometimes I'd be playing with her, and then she would have her relatives would visit, and she would make me sit and play the mridanga and sing, and then she would say to them, of course in Bengali, but I would get it translated later, that look at what you're doing. You were born with this culture, with Lord Chaitanya, and you're not doing enough. And look at what Prabhupada has done. These, white people, these Western people are here, and they're dedicated to the holy name and chanting, and you should be doing this. So in her way, she was always praising Prabhupada and wanting to be part of his mission. So one time she was saying she wanted to go, and there was a few other ladies in the room. It was the festival right before Gaur-Punim time, the festival. And I walked in the room, and one devotee said, oh, Ananga, Pishima wants her palm read. She wants to know if she can go to America and preach. So I didn't know how to read palms then. I had no idea. And later on I learned, and I think it was her mercy. But anyway, so I walked in and I pretended like I knew. So I said, oh, Pishima, I know how to read palms. Give me your hand. And took her hand, and I'm going, oh, ooh, ah, like this. Like, I used to like to make her laugh, because that's about all I could do, really, to help her. And so she's looking like, what? And I said, oh, Pishima's going on big parikram with Prabhupada to the spiritual world. And then she laughed, I was saying it in my broken Bengali, so she understood some things. And then I said, and Pishima's great Mahabhagwat, and she was laughing, and everyone was laughing. Sometimes I was trying to learn Bengali, so sometimes I'd come in and just to try to have a conversation with her, I'd say, Pishima, Pishima, and she'd look up like a little, innocent child, and she'd look up, yes, yes, what? And I'd say, Nitai pada kamala, and she'd go, Koti chandra shushitala. And I'd go, yay chai ya ya, jagadajudaya. And we would just converse like that. Anyway, then her health went down. And she wasn't really speaking much for a couple of days, and we were all worried and concerned. There was actually, everyone left from the festival to go to Vrindavan, so then I was alone with her, and one day she kept going, Kala Kadashi, it's tomorrow's Akadashi. And I was thinking, oh wow, what's happening here? She's so determined, that's all she's asking, that's all she would ask the whole day, not say anything else, not respond to much else. So I was staying there at night with her and all day with her. I put my deities in a box and I said, Gornita, I have to take care of Pishima now, and this is what I'm just not going to be here for you. And Lord always understands. He wants service to his devotees is foremost. So I was, sometimes at night I would tuck her in her mosquito net, and then, it's a whole ritual because you have to light incense and make sure there's no mosquitoes around her, and then tuck her in and make sure there's no mosquitoes in the net, and it's like a whole little thing. And then I'd say, oh, Pishima, this is your Shringasan, and she would laugh because I'd have the incense and the net around her. And sometimes she wouldn't want to disturb me, and she would wake up in the night and try to go to the bathroom, but she would fall. Once or twice that happened, and then I'd wake up hearing her Nangamanjari, and I'd run and try to pick her up, and that was difficult. I always felt like I should have done more and could have done more, and if I had known what I know now about helping people and taking care of them physically, I would have done a lot more for her. So after that Akadashi, I think it was the Akadashi after Gaur Purnim. So it was, or maybe the second, is there an Akadashi immediately after Gaur Purnim? Anyway, 11 days, yeah, so I think it was around that time, if I can remember properly. But anyway, it was around that time, and that night, I thought, I was getting ill actually, and I didn't know it, so I think I was getting typhoid fever actually, and I got very sick after she left. But that night I was not feeling well, and I thought, I need one night just to sleep properly. And so I asked one Bengali lady who helped me, Murari Haridas's wife. He's a kirtan person, and his wife, sweet Bengali lady, I asked her to stay with Pishima. So I went to my room and I was sleeping, and then in the morning I woke up and Prabhupada's samadhi at that time was like a little concrete slab, like a concrete little shed, you could say, maybe as big as this Vyasasan. They were just building, they hadn't built yet. So the whole ground was just dirt for all around, and then there was just this concrete little thing over where his samadhi was, Pushpa Samadhi in Mayapur. And so I went around his samadhi and I was praying, and I said, Prabhupada, she just wants to be with you. Pishima, I can't keep her comfortable anymore. I don't know what to do physically for her, and please, you just take her, and if there's any offense in me saying this, then I'll take it, because I can't keep watching her in this condition. She wasn't no energy, and it was very sad to see. So I said, she just wants to be with you, please take her. And I went to her room, and she had totally shut down, and the few Bengalis were there. They were trying to give her some Horlicks and Ganga Jal, and she just wasn't responding at all. She was kind of limped over on the side of the bed, just like this, And when I walked in, they all kind of left shaking their heads, and I was alone with her again. And so I started like rubbing her back, and I had my japa in one hand. I'm going, Hare Krishna, and I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do? What do I do for her? And I saw while I was chanting softly, her fingers were moving like japa. I thought, oh, she's hearing me, so she can hear. So tried to put japa beads in her hand. She couldn't hold them. And so I thought, well, she's hearing, so I'm going to play Prabhupada. We had the old cassette. I had this old broken down cassette player, and I'd play one tape, and it was Nitai Pada Kamala, Prabhupada singing. So I kept playing that, and I just thought I have to keep playing that all day long. That's what I have to do. And I put her in the bed to try to keep her comfortable with her pillows, and put the mosquito net around and like this to keep her as comfortable as possible. And I just thought I just have to keep playing that. So every once in a while I'd say to her, Pishima, in broken Bengali again, do you have to go to the bathroom? Do you have to, do you want jal lagbe? You want water? She didn't respond. And then I'd say, Prabhupada Shuno, you hear Prabhupada? And she'd go, huh. And that was the only thing she responded to. And I kept doing this all through, the day, going up, do you need this? Do you need that? No answer. Do you hear Prabhupada? Yes. Huh. Just a small little huh, like there was not much energy there. So at the end of the evening, I guess the Bengali devotees had called her relatives, and they came. So there was a group of them, and the Gurukula kids, and everyone was chanting in the room. And anyway, I was holding her hand, and her son was across from me, and he was kind of with his head down crying, and chanting was going on. It was Lord Nrsimhadev prayers at that moment, and I had the Bhakti Ma, the Bengali lady who helped me. I told her, come and hold her shoulder, because she wants devotees also near her, and so I was holding her hand. And she was breathing hard, and then all of a sudden her eyes started flickering and her mouth started moving, and I thought, maybe she wants to say something. Maybe she wants something. I mean, I didn't know. I was pretty bewildered. I was young and didn't know what was going on. And I thought, maybe she's going to be all right. Maybe she'll ask for something. So I went really, I tried to look at her son, what does she want? But he wasn't looking, and he was crying. So I went real close to her face, and to listen. And she just went, ha, hare, ha, hare, hare, ha, and then stopped. And it was like a dead stop. And I just went, oh my God, did she just leave? Did she just go? And then, just like in the movies, when you see, the subtle body rising up from the physical body, you see this ethereal body coming up, and I actually kind of saw that, her hands started raising up, and her subtle body started raising up, and I actually had to get out of the way because I was right in her face, and she's moving up, and I kind of moved back, and physically I had to move out of the way, and she's like this, looking up at the corner of the room, and I saw Prabhupada ethereally coming down like this with his hand out, and they kind of held hands, and then they started kind of just disappearing, kind of floating off to the corner of the room, and I'm like my eyes were following this. Physically, I was I remember that, and then they were kind of disappeared, and I went, oh my God, they just left me. They left me here. I'm like, they left me here, I want to go too. And then I realized, oh my God, I'm still holding her hand, but sometimes you don't notice something until the absence of it. So while I was holding her hand, I was praying, and I didn't know anything about subtle energies at that time, really, like Reiki and all that stuff. I didn't know about these things, but I was praying, Krishna, whatever youthfulness I have, whatever energy I have, whatever goodness I've done in my life, let her have it now. Just give it to her, because she needs this strength, she needs it. And, I was praying like that, just giving my heart and my life to her. But when it stopped, because she had gone, I realized that, oh my God, it wasn't just going this way, it was going this way. Like she was giving me so much. I was giving her, but she was giving me. And yeah, then everyone realized she went, so the kirtan got like, wow, incredible. And a few, within a few moments or whatever, then all the men and boys and children left, and her relatives and myself had to take care of her body at, the last rites. So there was a sari, and they kind of knew what to do, the lady, so I kind of let them do it, and then I put the tilak and the, like that, and we had flowers, and then everyone came in and was offering flowers, and, more kirtan was going on. Everyone came in, they were offering flowers and saying prayers. And I remember I was standing there and I'm looking right at her, and she was like, I was thinking, oh, earlier she looked like kind of a dried up prune, just like kind of withering away and no energy and just withering. And now, she's glowing. Like I actually saw this like light flashing from her, and I'm thinking, oh, and I went like this. I went, oh, Ananga, you're just hallucinating. Like this can't even be true. How can any of this be true, what you saw? And, this is your imagination. And right when I thought that, and I thought, oh, she's glowing. I used the word glowing. And then I went, no, I'm hallucinating. This is not true. And then one of the pujaris, it was either Pankajanari or Jananivas, I never could tell the difference, but one of them and another tall Anakadambi pujari who was working at that time there, they both came in and they kind of stood right in front of me. They kind of walked right in front of me, and one of the twins, he turned to the other, and I was right behind them, and he goes, she's glowing. And I went, oh, wow. I mean, that usually we say she's effulgent, or, it's like she's glowing, the same word. And I thought, okay, Krishna, thank you. If that's true, and he saw it too, then all of it must be true. And so, yeah. Later on, her relatives came to me and they gave me her mosquito net. And they said, she told us that this was her Shringasan and she wanted you to have it. So she must have told them little stories about what we had done. So Prabhupada is taking everyone by the hand, if you so desire. Yeah. So what Sharanga Thakur and what you had mentioned is there. Also, at one point, I had written a letter to Prabhupada. It was right after Hridayananda had taken sannyas. I asked him if I could preach and lead kirtans and give classes in his movement, and he wrote yes, with a great yes, and 3 great words: be great, do it greatly, you will be a great example or whatever for the society, for our society. I tried, but I didn't do that. But he also wrote in that letter that you have given up such a sacrifice in your life, so Krishna will be kind upon you, and when you quit this body, you can go back to home, back to Godhead. And then he wrote in his own handwriting, there was a little addition, and meet your husband there. So that means we're all going to be meeting. We'll all know each other. Once Prabhupada said, we'll have another ISKCON there. Well, I hope it's going to be a whole lot improved. New and improved, of course, that edition. It's wonderful now, and it can be new and improved, even better. So I know, Prabhupada, that your life was meant for others. Your life was all about giving to others, just as Vishaka's daughter was saying when they said, oh, we want to take a video of you, Prabhupada. And he goes, why? And then they said, oh, well, because other people will need to know about you. All right, because that will spread Krishna consciousness. So for the benefit of others, I'll do whatever. So that was Prabhupada's mission and mood and what he imbibed in all of our hearts. He's our ever well-wisher, and I just pray that I can't do everything that you asked me to do. I haven't done it and probably won't in this lifetime, but if I can just be everyone's well-wisher, That's my mission, that's my ambition, and that's my religion. So thank you, Prabhupada, for giving us this. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mother Manjay. Hare Krishna. Mother Ruchira. There's a story, a similar story to what you told. At the last minute in Mexico, they got permission to do a talk show, and the talk show was going to go on at midnight. So they came into Prabhupada's room and told him, it must have been 9, 10 o'clock at night, and they told Prabhupada, we can do this show, but we don't want to inconvenience you. And Prabhupada asked, well, how many people are going to watch this show? He said, like 2 million or something, or more. Prabhupada said, yes. Then again, they said, but Prabhupada, it's going to be late, you're going to be tired, you're going to be hungry, we don't want to inconvenience you. And Prabhupada said, if I think about my convenience, I cannot preach. And he said, anyway, we can sleep later. So that was Prabhupada's mood.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Vitale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Ti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pacharni Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatari Saitani. I was hoping to read, but my phone doesn't work here. There was a very nice, one devotee from England sent me a very nice article that the older Puri Maharaj had written about Srila Prabhupada in 1977 and published in his magazine. And it was so amazing. He went through kind of like Srila Prabhupada's life. And one point he was saying how Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur predicted that this holy name and this movement would be spread all over the world. And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said this movement would be spread all over the world. And he said none of us could understand how. How could this be spread all over the world? And when I read that, I was thinking, yes, and there was, in Mulaprakriti Prabhu's book, where she goes around and interviews different devotees, one of the Gaudiya Math devotees was saying how Srila Prabhupada was up in one of their sanghas, and afterwards they were discussing how is it possible that this holy name can go all over the world? It's just an impossibility. We have these tiny little motts, and how's it going to go all over the world? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati sent devotees to England. They didn't come up with anything. And he said, so how will this work? And Srila Prabhupada was walking down the stairs, and one of the devotees came to say goodbye, and Srila Prabhupada said, do not worry, it will not be any of you, but one insignificant beggar. He will take this. And I think, how can you imagine? It's 70 years old, 2 heart attacks on the boat, coming over to this Western world, not understanding anything. It's kind of beyond even imagination if you try to think how that could happen. It's just incredible. And I see even his godbrothers understood that this is something that only a very empowered acharya could do. And somehow he came and saved all of us. And it's going all over the world. Who would have thought in Russia,
when I was a kid, you were worried about the bombs coming from Russia. You know those drills where you had to get under your desk and bend down and hold your head, whatever. That's what Russia, no one could get into Russia. And yet Srila Prabhupada made a point to go. And Krishna sent someone, Lord Chaitanya, to him for him to, a little bit of association he gave this boy. And yet he started this whole huge movement in Russia. So many devotees from there. And spread all over the world. Who could do that but a very empowered Vaishnava like Srila Prabhupada? Anyway, thank you very much. I was going to tell a little story, but I don't know if I can. When I was in England, I guess it was maybe 76, and I was making the milk sweets for the deities. I used to do that then also. And Bhajahari, who was the temple president, came to the kitchen and said, somebody has to make rasgullas. I'm going to Kumbh Mela and I'm going to see Srila Prabhupada. I'm going to bring these rasgullas. So I said, no, everybody's going, no, I don't have time, I can't do. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I'd only made rasgullas a couple times, so it was kind of like, hope these come out. So I made these rasgullas and we put them in a jar. And at that time you could take anything on the plane. So he took them with him. And I never heard anything about what had happened. He never said anything when he came back. And I thought maybe the devotees ate them. Who knows what happened. And then we got these nectar books. And I saw a little pastime that Bhajahari had brought these rasgullas to Srila Prabhupada at Kumbh Mela. And Srila Prabhupada picked them up and he said, even the Queen of England cannot get rasgullas made in London brought to the Kumbh Mela. And he ate a rasgulla. And afterwards he talked a bit about how when he was a boy, anything made in England was considered the best. He said, so these rasgullas coming, this is the best. And so it was like confirmation that, he got that in service. And I think all service that we can do for Srila Prabhupada, no matter who we are, it's accepted. Prabhupada said, don't think Krishna is an ungrateful master, and I think Srila Prabhupada even more so. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Mother Chair. So, we have 10 minutes.
You should speak.
I can, but 10 minutes, still there's more time. Well, I'll tell you, I've been speaking a lot, but I'll tell you a story that I think is very apropos to this discussion, these discussions we're having. So I'm part of a group, and in the group we discuss various issues that affect the movement. And one of the discussions was keeping Prabhupada in the center. This is always a discussion, maybe an eternal discussion. And one devotee said something very simple. He said, he joined right around the time Prabhupada left, and he said that I noticed the biggest mistake that we made when Prabhupada left is that we said he left. Because he didn't leave, because he lives eternally in his books. And we should stop saying Prabhupada left. And so it just struck me, a very simple point. It struck me. Yes, it's true. And I think all of us who were there when Prabhupada left, we realized that he actually went into our hearts more strongly. I think one of you were saying that? After Prabhupada left, it's like, okay, we felt the responsibility. So Prabhupada went into our hearts. He didn't leave. But if he didn't go into our hearts, then we might say that he left. If we weren't connected with his service or his books, then we would say something like he left. But it's not possible for Prabhupada to leave unless we leave him. That's the only way he can leave. And as we were hearing these stories about Prabhupada appearing in dreams, knowing what other devotees are doing, or telling devotees to thank another devotee, there are so many stories after Prabhupada left of similar incidents in which Prabhupada appears to someone to tell them something about something that's happening. So I know for myself, because I got a lot of association with Prabhupada, there's always, because he never made you feel like he was special. So there was always this tendency to think, well, yeah, he's just, a sadhu like that. But one man, maybe you know this story, he could understand people by seeing their face, and he saw Prabhupada's picture on a book, and he did measurements of the picture, measuring this way, that way, this way, that way. And he said, if any astrologer tries to describe him, said, he's a liar, he can't. He's a transcendental personality. He's not a personality of this world. You can't describe him astrologically. And then he said, maybe you've heard this, he said, he does not write with ink, he writes with fire. And his words destroy the ignorance of the world. So these I find are like beautiful reminders of us if we ever think, well, Prabhupada's my spiritual master and I saw him here and he gave me a flower and he smiled. It doesn't end there at all. And those who were with Prabhupada, we can remember those times we were with him. And I think it was you, Bhagavati, who said, you can't describe what it's like, you have to be there to experience it. You can try to describe it, but last night I was looking at a reel of Prabhupada in Los Angeles from 1970 to 76, and I was there most of that time. And I was in some of those videos, and I'm just looking at them, and I'm just like, I just want to cry, because I'm thinking, those days were so special. Being with Prabhupada, there's nothing in my life that will ever compare to those experiences. And may we always remember how special Prabhupada is. And one of the things that I find so satisfying, because I get to travel to many, many places, and I travel to places where there are very few Prabhupada disciples. Some places, no Prabhupada disciples, can you imagine? So it's so heartwarming to see devotees becoming attached to Prabhupada as if they met him. I want to end with this beautiful story. Because these devotees are having experiences like Prabhupada is with them, like he's his guru. So this one devotee, he worked for ITV and he was copying videos, the Acharya videos. That was his service. I believe it was the Acharya video. And so he's copying, editing, and he's just looking at all these videos, like all the time, looking at Prabhupada. So he's out on Sankirtan, and he's distributing a book, and he's telling someone about Prabhupada, and he's describing Prabhupada as this, that, this, that, this, that. And the man says to him, he said, so when did you meet him? And he was totally thrown off, because at that point he realized, actually, I never met him. But that was not his experience. His experience was Prabhupada's my Siksha Guru, my Param Guru. And it was like he didn't really have that realization that he never met Prabhupada until he was asked, when did you meet him? So one of the services that I do when I travel, or what I like to do the most, is tell devotees about Prabhupada. And that's important because I fortunately have spent time with Prabhupada, so I can do that. So I just want to encourage all of you, in any way you can, tell other devotees, especially younger devotees, about your experiences with Prabhupada and who Prabhupada is to you and who you think he is to them, because that is so important for the future of our movement, and it's so nourishing. And I see when I do that how how beneficial it is, and how lots of devotees say, I never knew Prabhupada was like that, or they say things like, I was afraid of him, I thought he was like very heavy. One devotee even said, I got the impression Prabhupada was so heavy, I stopped reading his books, I was afraid to read his books. So those of us who feel this connection to Prabhupada, those of us who've been with Prabhupada, it's a great service we can do, to tell anyone and everyone about Prabhupada. And if you ever get inspired to travel, just call me up and I'll arrange it for you and put you in touch with so many temples that would just love to have you and hear you speak about Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Yes?
That person that you told about looking at the picture of Prabhupada, that's an Atma memory. And one thing that person also said was that after he did the measurements of the whole body, he said, this person represents all
Yes, sure.
They're all present.
I'll repeat that. And the additional thing that that person said about Prabhupada being transcendental and riding with fire was that in this person, all the four acharyas exist. And he said it that way, in him. Within him, all four acharyas exist. Yeah, so.
Didn't he tell us that if you knew who I am, when they asked him, you would say?
I'm not sure.
I remember a devotee who said on one of the memories, and he said...
What was the question? Like they asked Prabhupada, who are you?
Who are you in the spiritual world?
Right.
He said, you do not need to know, but if I told you, you would say.
Hare Krishna. If I told you, you wouldn't believe it. Same thing. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So I was doing something while the schedule was being announced. Who knows the schedule for this evening? It starts at 6 with Prasadam, is that correct? Yes. 6 with Prasadam, then 6:30 Arti, Damodar Ashtakam, and then 7:15. I guess Damodar Ashtakam, the Kirtan will continue to 7:15, Pushpanjali. So there'll be Arti to Srila Prabhupada at 7:15, yeah. Okay. We did Pushpanjali this morning, so I guess they're not going to do it in the evening, unless you want. You think we should, if someone thinks it's important, we do it in the evening, you can tell them, okay. Okay. Thank you all for coming. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bo.